fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got with the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh. Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Welcome everyone back to SimSpeed TV here on a Friday night. Well, getting ready for another weekend of V8SCOPS action means we start here with the Support Series thanks to Logitech G for 2022. It's the third event for the supports this weekend, and we've got the 2-litre Tourers and the Jetta Cup headlining your action tonight. My name is Daniel Yeaman, David Haynes alongside me, and Jay Kennedy up in production. And David, well, we come to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park this weekend for V8SCOPS and the supports overall, and it's set to be a fun bit of racing tonight with 2 races in both classes tonight.
Yeah, and this circuit's a fantastic exercise in less is more. On paper, there's not a lot of corners, but each of them have some real flow and some elevation, and you do get into a rhythm here with the long Andretti back straight, 2 slow tabletop right-handers at Moss. In this opening sector, it's fast, it's flowing, and if you catch that grass, you very quickly find yourself into some tyre barriers.
You sure will. Here as we have a look at the particulars of the track here at Mosport, as it is commonly known by so many around the world and on the sim. And indeed, that first sector through turn 1, down the hill over into turn 2 at Clayton's, and Quebec at turn 3, all super critical corners, along with the turn 4 approach to the Moss corner complex as well. As you said, David, that opening sector will be all about maximum speed whilst keeping it on the track. And, well, could go very wrong at turn 2 at Clayton's in particular. That's a prime spot for cars to miss the racing line and fire off into the tyre bundles at that spot there in particular. But this whole track is going to be about how fast you can get around the corners and not drive it off the track. But we'll have to see how that all goes in a moment's time. Meanwhile, having a quick look at the format of racing tonight. 21 laps apiece for the 2-litre Tourers here, or a 40-minute time limit, whichever comes first, but we should get those laps all completed tonight. And then it's going to be a reverse grid in the second race, and also a mandatory pit stop for at least 2 tyres. So drivers will have to implement some pit strategy in for this second race later on tonight.
And that, with these style of cars, is always an interesting little strategy gambit, because you put some cold tyres on and suddenly the car becomes quite a bit of a handful on that outlap. You've got really fast corners around here, like this final sector you see Carl Sampson going through, and qualifying is going pretty good for him. Practice went pretty well for him as well. So you're constantly turning and braking and then trying to pick up the power. Really a lot of lateral loaded Gs through these first 3 corners as well.
Indeed, this could be a very interesting one for these cars in particular. Front wheel drive, of course, and turbocharged power plants under the nose of all the different cars here, as we have a quick look at one of them in particular, the number 52 of Thomas Hin's Honda Civic Type R, one of the later additions to the TCR class, which helped inspire the introduction of the category for this year. The other one of the cars that came along with it, the Hyundai Elantra NTC category, as we see it in the hands of Reece Gardner here Number 94 car looking to improve on a 126.1. He does improve slightly to a 26.0, but he's going to stay in 6th place for now. Got to find just over a tenth of a second to move up the charts. Ryan Green here, Alpha Venturi Racing, and the all-new Hyundai Veloster N. Part of the TCR class now on iRacing, a 126.9 for him. Unfortunately, David not able to improve his time there on that particular run.
One purple sector so far from Thomas Hinz. He's going to come to that second timing beam in a little bit as well, so I think he could be on to extend that advantage he's got at the top of the field for the moment. Personal best in the middle for him as Mark Noble comes to the line and slots into 11th with 3 personal best sectors there. Not too much traffic for Hinsey because it is just a short 10-minute qualifying session. All drivers out on track, and therefore you've got to be wary of the traffic. But the other side of that coin is maybe picking up a slipstream somewhere if you can. And he does manage to improve, does your current provisional pole sitter.
Putting the foot down now because, well, it was Matthew Pluck at the top of the time charts, pardon me, when we had a look at things here when we jumped into the session, David. But yeah, now Carl Sampson, then followed by Thomas Hinz. Dylan Jordan now jumping up into P2. So Hyundai's dominating the top 5. As it so happens, we see here Sampson currently in the middle of a lap. Personal best sector 1. See what his time is like here in a moment once you get to the sector 2 marker. In a moment here, has an opportunity to improve, and he can find all he needs is half a tenth that will do him in terms of improvement on this lap. So we're very curious to see what it's like here as he comes down that Mario Andretti back straight. Not very straight as they go, and that's a second personal best for Sampson. So he's on track here to possibly get ahead of Dylan Jordan here and try and close that gap to Thomas Hinz, because Hinz has done a fantastic job with the quali lap so far to be 3.5 tenths clear of the rest of the field, David. So around the final corner comes Sampson. Looking good so far. So across the line he comes at 25.28. That's a nice improvement indeed, and definitely cuts into that gap that Hinz had established there. Not long left in this qualifying session, and the heat format in use tonight means we're going to have a hard cut off when the timer hits 0. So very important these drivers get their runs done as soon as they can and time it the best they can to ensure they get their runs done when they want.
Yeah, and for the most part, everyone fueled for the full 10-minute session. Only drivers to change tyres, Matthew Brunt and Robert Crisdale. Everyone else just get out there, keep running the laps, and hope that it comes good towards the end of the session. Sampson looking for a lot of rotation and point in that car. And then it is a long full throttle run down this Andretti straightaway. That's why in the middle sector, you've got very, very equal times for everyone, and the difference is being made through turns 1, 2, and 3, and also how much speed they can carry into this final segment, because, gosh, you can get tempted to get a little bit too greedy for these double apex right-hander, and that'll leave you offline when the track then flicks back to the left, which will then leave you offline for the final corner as well. So you can get yourself in debt and into a bit of trouble quite quickly there and go over the top and off the optimal racing line as the track keeps tightening and tightening and tightening as it swaps back on itself.
Indeed, it's in the art of compromise, that final sector, and oh my goodness me. So close, but so far all the same. Carl Sampson. Words escape my mouth today, apparently. Look at that. 13 thousandths of a second is all it's going to be that separates him from pole position tonight.
And
he's
all of that's in the final sector.
Indeed, he set a personal best in Sector 3. He also set the fastest Sector 1 of the session so far. Unfortunately, he's out of time to be able to set a lap and get back around here. So looking at a couple of drivers ahead of him, such as Reece Gardner in the number 94, looking to improve on P5. So Reece has done a good job quietly in the background. The only person ahead of him who's on track that Dylan Jordan will not be able to improve from here. So across the line comes Gardner. Unfortunately, a 25.72 is not going to be an improvement for him, but he's now fairly safe there. Robert Northway is on track but not able to get around, and Zachary Vlasbom has just completed a lap. So that's going to do it from qualifying here, folks, for the first of 2 races in the 2-litre Tourer class tonight, David. We'll run everyone through the grid now. Thomas Hinz with that pole position at 25.157, good enough for P1 tonight. Carl Sampson alongside him, just 13 thousandths of a second behind. It's a close front row. We look forward to seeing how that pans out over the course of the race here in a moment's time. Dylan Jordan out of P3 alongside Alex John for 4th place. Reece Gardner there in P5 with Matthew Pluck starting alongside him for P number 6. Hayden Kirk starting out of 7th. We'll have Matthew Brunt alongside him for position number 8. Ben Faulkner out of 9th with Robert Northway in 10th. Mark Noble starting 11th. And then it's Robert Crisdale rounding out our first 6 rows there, David.
Yeah, so then the remainder of your field, Zachary Fleischbaum, Ryan Green, Shane Best, Isaac Edwards is the last driver with a qualifying time. None for Reese Harnell or Ben Christensen. And might be one more. Yeah, there's a couple more. Don't think we're going to see Henry King, but that's all of our grid of drivers. And of course, the standing start, different manufacturers. I always find that the biggest difference is about that clutch drop, those bite points and those getaways from a standing start, and it is a super short run in towards turn number 1 here as well.
Yep, the Audi RS3 very much known for a good launching capacity compared to the other 2 cars here, well actually 3 cars now.
There's no Audi in the
TCR
first 3 rows though.
But indeed, the first Audi is Matthew Brunt out of P8, so unless he can get a monumental jump but also get his nose around everyone ahead of him cleanly, he's going to have his work cut out here and won't be able to take full advantage. So everyone else in front of him, racing sequential gearbox, will have to rely on clean clutch release, whereas that Audi will have to be just gentle on the throttle whilst mashing the brakes here while we wait for the green flag. So we're waiting on Reese Harnell and Johnny Rose, the other car that is in the session in TCR cars. We have 3 members of race control in the form of Ben Christensen, Aaron Gilbert and Henry King, all in the Porsche Cayman 718. Supported by Logitech G. But looks like we're going to have 16 cars taking the grid, and away the green flag goes, and a bit of wheel spin there, and his car stalled in the middle of the pack.
Alex
of the
John.
top split cars. Oh, yes, the 77 Alex John, and there's another car all the way back there also stalled. So, the Veloster, that will be of Ryan Green in the 818, yes. So 2 cars stalling off the line, and that's the challenge here. Oceanic Sim Racing is the series admins and operators. No driver assists allowed here, David, so a couple of drivers caught out by that and not getting their bite points set correctly for the clutch. On the start, as there we go, trouble at turn 3. Matthew Brunt's been given a tap, but looks like they've come out of it all clean, just about. Maybe a bit of panel rubbing and minor damage there, but everyone gets away and gets down to turn 4 without any further trouble here.
Yeah, if in doubt, flat out, give it some boot, and Matthew Brunt pulled the tail back around. They were too wide through a lot of the opening corners, and a bit of contact might have been inevitable. Too wide through this tightest section here. Hello, throwing it across the curbs, but you want to square it off best as you can for the long run and the slipstream down this straight, and that's what Hins is going to start to be worried about potentially.
Yeah, maybe. We'll have to see what we think. Carl Sampson is looking aggressive early. Got on half a nose inside, but just maybe trying to get in the head of Hins up front, so nothing of it this time by, and so through the S's at the end of the lap we go. Again, that game of how much do you attack, how much do you compromise the corners, and see here these drivers opting to make sure they open the final corner up as much as possible, which makes a lot of sense in a TCR car class like this, because they have to make sure they've got space to put the power down. First driver into the pit lane, Mark Noble, already bringing the car down onto the pits in the 21 lap race, and there we go. Advised, indeed, yes, a black flag for the 22. So, jump start there. I would have to be a jump start or a slowdown penalty somewhere around the lap. So, well, 22,
Ryan Green with 1-2, and he's one of those cars that we saw stalled out. So, I think the level of driver assists might have just caught out 1 or 2 drivers.
Well, it caught out Alex John and Ryan Green. Unfortunately, Green has somehow ended up with a mechanical black flag, whereas Noble, currently still in the pit lane, has the iRacing penalty black flag. So
it is.
Bit of a differentiation there. So unfortunately, Ryan Green's race, that'll be him basically done. All right, so we're going to have a quick look at a replay thanks to Virtual Racing School and get an idea of what happened there on the start. Yes, yep, look at that. Audi in the background shot, and that'll be why, unfortunately, Green here in the front of shot has got the mechanical black flag. Number 15, and it's in the hands of Isaac Edwards, not expecting a car to not get away at the front. But I just saw in the back of shot on the right side of the picture, folks, an Audi jumping a little bit too soon there, and the colours were that.
We said they get good starts. We said they get good starts, but we didn't think that good. It was just a little early on that one.
It was indeed. Meanwhile, up towards the front of the field, P3 is possibly being contested here as we stay on board with the race leader for a moment being, but the fight for 3rd, 4th and 5th is starting to heat up. Dylan Jordan and Matthew Pluck, both out of the Kiwi sim racing stable, were nose to tail down the front stretch, but a slightly compromised run through turn 1 has actually brought Reese Gardner right onto the bumper of Pluck, but look at that there through turn 3, David. A little bit wide line from Pluck. He's now under attack from Gardner around the outside. Looks for Reese to turn 4. That's risky. If he can make it stick, though, he's got the apex for the double setup of turn 5 here. So he's inside, and he holds it there. He's going to force Pluck around the outside here on lap 3 of 21. Pluck definitely says, I'm going to hang on to the outside here. So it's a drag race down the Andretti straightaway. And that slightly wider line from Pluck is going to allow him to hang on to the spot for now. He's forced Gardner into a compromised exit. Not able to put the power down like he would, given the front-wheel drive nature of the cars would mean a lot of understeer if he tried planning the throttle. So we're going to have 2x2 somewhat down the back straight here, David, as Hayden Kirk and Ben Faulkner have a go at it now. And look at this, Faulkner trying to muscle his way around the outside of turn 7, and Gardner is able to hang on and slide the nose over in front and allows Kirk to come around the outside of Faulkner. So switching back and forth these guys' position, and it brings Matthew Brunt and Robert Crisdale in their Audis into this train. So there you go. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars. Give it about a second and a half between all of them there in a line.
And Faulkner with some patience there ended up rewarded, because around him they were just so eager to try to go get petty and go for every little opportunity they could, and he waited, and they lost time fighting side by side, and he got down the inside of the final corner. So that was heads up stuff, but I think he's gonna they're all gonna have a bit of challenge for them when Matthew Brunt catches up to him.
Look at that. Continuing to scrap for P4. Gardner trying to go up the inside of Pluck through to turn 4 that time. Not able to make it stick, but really aggressive on the brakes, and he's a little bit tighter, and that's a better run out of Moss Corner that time, though, for the 94, and he's on the rear bumper, so there's going to be a good bit of slipstream here as we start getting up the gears. And look at them in the background. Ben Faulkner is falling prey to the Audis of Brunt and Crisdale. You're just saying there, Faulkner had the patience. Unfortunately for Faulkner, he actually lost a spot to Hayden Kirk in that whole battle pack there, and he's now losing a spot potentially to the 134 Audi. But here comes Reese Gardner up the inside at the end of the Mario Andretti straight, and he's holding it there. Pluck's trying to hang on, but he's not able to keep the car in it. So cedes the position at turn 9, and that's P4 for the 94. And now see what can Pluck do in terms of recovering from that one there and remounting an attack. As you see here, Crisdale having a look at Brunt there for half a moment. They haven't been able to get past Faulkner just yet, but they're now putting the pressure on that bumper of the 042, who's lost touch a little bit with the Honda of Kirk up ahead.
Yeah, so Brunt lost a spot or two on that opening lap, and I think it's definitely applying a bit of blowtorch here. Shallow entry through 3, but then that corner just seemed to keep turning on the exit, and that's the sort of track out that is really, really tough for these front-wheel drive cars. Another run through the lane for... No, he's only just leaving the lane with that damage for Green.
Yeah, lengthy pit stops, no fast repairs permitted here in this series. So unfortunately, getting a mechanical black flag is the worst possible thing that you can have. And see here, down the the Andretti straightaway, pardon me. This time though, just back up again to that fight for P4. Pluck now on the attack. Same time, Brunt's having a look at Ben Faulkner. So side by side we go, live pictures on both sides of the screen. This time Gardner fending off Pluck there. Meanwhile, Faulkner fends off Brunt. So more or less some same. There goes Brunt up the inside, turn 9. Oh, he foots it down the inside aggressively, but Faulkner's able to hold on. And Pluck now is, pardon me, Brunt's now dropped a little bit of a spot there. And Crisdale right on his rear bumper, but not able to capitalise. They've got Robert Northway now joining the picture there, so a 4-car fight building for position number 7. Now, I just wanted to tell you that Brunt here has actually held station since the race start. Everyone around him, though, has gained spots as a result of Alex John stalling the car at the beginning of the race. You look at this again, Brunt up the inside at turn 3, forcing the door open. Faulkner had to steer out of that one there, David. And, well, that's another spot loss for the 042 as Crisdale tries to make it 2 spots lost on this lap, but not quite able to make it work here in a turn 4. And Faulkner immediately trying to get the nose up the inside, potentially opens the outside line for Cruzella, so he's going to possibly compromise Moss Corner here. And that's not looking too good for a racing line. And here comes Cruzella on the exit of turn 5. And look at that. That's basically signed, sealed, and delivered, I would think. But the drive, once the cars get up to speed, says otherwise, and missed the slipstream, I think, there for Faulkner down the Andretti straightaway. He's going to be able to hang on to the spot for the time being, but Cruzell's not giving up just yet. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, change for the lead. Carl Sampson gets his 27 Kiwi Sim Racing Hyundai up to the front of the field after shadowing Thomas Hinze in the opening 6 laps, David.
Yeah, Hinze had led the way basically since that start, but Carl Sampson right with him through it all has then gone and picked up that lead with the slipstream down the back straight. The Veloster certainly... Elantra certainly looked pretty good down that back straight when we were watching from one of the previous battles. And has there been a little problem coming onto the straight from Hinze? No?
Not too bad there on the virtual racing score replay, David. I think it's just going to be a case of being just close enough that the slipstream is not only super effective, but also gives Carl the chance to stay in it all the way down the straightaway. And to see a closing here as we ride the crest over turns what are counted as turns 6 and 7. Bless my heart, America. You'll never understand why you name those kind of little Marshall Post kinks. But up the inside of turn 8, and job done. Not much fuss from the former race leader there, and more than happy to get back in it. But yeah, live pictures back at Moss Corner. Faulkner's gone off into the weeds. He's just driven in a bit too hot through the middle of turn 5, and well, from bad to now a little bit more worse as he slowly brings it back onto track so as to not cause any problems there for those guys. And oh well, more pain for the 042. It's been a rough couple of laps here for this guy. You see here on the replay, just too fast into the first part of the Moss Corner complex, David.
Yeah, we've all done that. You can't really see the road and the track out point over the crest until you're right upon it. So you're in the braking zone and turning in, and you're very often too cautious. And that time that you go and try to push a little deeper into the braking zone there is when you do something like that. It's like turn 2 at Phillip Island. You get out there, you touch a little bit of the grass, and you get in even more trouble because the track gets away from you.
Yeah, the camber to the circuit does not make you any friends out there whatsoever.
That corner
back
with
live pictures. Yes, indeed. And yeah, very much a good analogy there, even though the speed difference is pretty substantial here at Moss versus the Southern Loop back here at home, but very much the same principle does indeed apply. So back with live pictures and back to the front of the field. See there, it looks like Hinze opting to really try and get in a slightly earlier apex and use more of that runoff there. But one of the drivers who's got good pace here at this stage of the race looks like to be Reece Gardner. He's been able to close down that gap to Dylan Jordan ahead. So the fight is back on for P3. 3/10 here as we come up the Mario Andretti straightaway. I don't think he's going to get him this time by, but could be close here at the end depending on what Jordan does here, David.
Yeah, there was space between these two. But either Dylan Jordan's worn his tyres a little harder or Gardner's on a charge, and the answer would be that last lap for Reece Gardner was his personal best. Dylan Jordan was about a tenth short of his, so Gardner just really coming into some form as the race has gone on.
Yeah, I think that would be the best description of things. Reece certainly an adept pair of hands when it comes to TCR class racing.
You can't go there, man. Come on.
Well, that's a completely unintentional joke regarding our favourite Southpaw racer. So, nothing intended by the commentary, David. All right, fine. That's a more neutral term to put it, I suppose. But he's continuing to harry the back end of Dylan Jordan and not coming under pressure from Pluck or Kirk, who are still locked in their own two-way fight there. So, future see, can those two guys settle their differences in behind so that they can get back onto the bumper of Gardner before he gets around Dylan Jordan. He's closer this time, so he's going to be in a good position like Carl Sampson was for that race lead a couple of laps back. The question is he too close? He's got to pull out already as we're cresting the first part, Andretti straightaway, but that car is continuing to accelerate the side draft now. Whatever the little side draft there might be with these cars, he's able to get alongside, so he's got the control of the inside line here, David. And yep, Dylan Jordan not looking to fight that one there.
Yeah, and he did that the other time as well, he just got to the right-hand side of the track, got to the inside line for the first segment, and he had a lot of speed inside and could brake pretty deep to get clear before that track cuts back to the left.
So job done for the 94, up to P3. 2 spots gained in this race, making good moves forward, but it's a 4.5 second gap, 4 seconds just over to second place. Garda could do it, but competent pair of drivers up ahead in the form of Hinz and Sampson, and both of those guys have been setting solid laps to this point so far. As we jump back on board with Hayden Kirk, they've just closed the gap a bit to Dylan Jordan now. That these two are pushing on. All part of the Kiwi Sim Racing stable, as you can see. So, would be somewhat in their collective interests, you would think, to not fight too hard if they want to try and defeat what you guess you could call the usurper amongst them all.
I think GRM run less TCR marks these days than Kiwi Sim Racing are doing.
Well, that's true. We do have quite the collection. I mean, mostly in the Elantra there, but one lone Honda, it would seem. And yep, he's not looking to pass his teammate there. That's looking for a full-on bump draft down the Andretti straightaway. So indeed, with some good collaboration, I think. Although, a bit of movement here and there makes you think otherwise half the time. We'll have to see what they do, because look who's closing in from behind. Matthew Brunt in that Synergy Audi has been working his way in towards them the past couple of laps, and is matching pace. They're in the low 1 minute 26s now, this group of cars. I think maybe just trying to conserve the tyres here, or then again, even though it's a 21 lap race, which is pretty much a sprint for these kind of cars, and as you said, David, a lot of lateral load, so the front end can start complaining if you push it too hard here too soon.
I'd say this is the kind of circuit that would be pretty brutal on that front left. Basically, every significant braking zone is a right-hander. You've got a handful of really quick ones, and then at Moss, it's two corners, it's 2 apexes, but you really flow it together like it's one, and that's just consistent load, not just, oh yeah, a bit of load here, but it just sustained second upon second, temperatures build, etc.
Absolutely, yeah. Turn 2 has a bit of load on that front right, but as you said, far majority of the loaded corners are going to be right-hand turns, which means that front left is loaded. So look at Brunt come this time down the straightaway. He's closing that gap quite rapidly, half a second now to Kirk ahead of him. And Kirk, though, got the benefit of the tow from his teammate in the hands of Pluck. So here down the end of the back straight, he'll be able to just keep that gap at half a second whilst closing down on his teammate. So through the final corner complex, but a little wide of the apex at 9. Again, just giving Brunt a bit of a sniff, and the thought that, okay, could be on here, but never mind that. Kirk's pulled to the inside of Pluck, so they're going to go side by side through 2-1, and that might just hold them both up here as they come around the corner. And look at this. Pluck's not ready to give up his spot here for P5, so he's now going to make Kirk go the long way around if he dares at turn 2. Few would try that, and indeed Kirk is not willing to make that try and work, but that just means it halves the gap that he had to Brunt behind here, David. So maybe a bit of a all for one, one for all. Well, actually, that's Musketeers kind of commentary. That's not quite right, but just every man for himself is the best way to describe it. Perhaps we're seeing here from the KSR pair to make their way through turns 3 and 4 now, but they could be under pressure very soon as we look out the back of Dylan Jordan's car, and that's the gap from 4th to 5th here, and the gap from 5th to 6th, basically nothing. And look at that. Kirk with a much better run through turn 5.
Pluck is just not getting any traction off some of these slower corners. You see it at the final corner where they got some overlap there because Kirk just had so much more drive, and it's happened off Moss a couple times too as well now. Brunt will be smelling a
here he comes.
Potential opportunity.
Oh, he's almost there, but opts not to go full send. Opts to play it safe. We are just over the halfway mark as it is, so clearly willing to play the longer game here is that 134 driver. So just sizing up his opportunities here. Looks like, again, I think you've got a good point there. A lot of these mid-speed corners, it really does look like that Hyundai Elantra of Pluck's has not got the run, because Kirk's on another fantastic drive off of turn 1, but Pluck's defending the inside, so Kirk's got nowhere to go. That Honda is starting to respond a lot better, it would seem. Maybe looking after its front tyres a little bit, because I know from experience, the TCR car is not so much the wear value, it's the temperature value. that can easily kill the front end grip if you've got long loaded corners. So yeah, I think that Elantra, whether it's setup, driving style, bit of both perhaps, it's starting to really hurt Pluck there, and he's not able, as you said, to get that mid to low speed rotation that he needs to set up Moss corner, for example. Then again, look at Kirk's line. Far more aggressive, willing to throw it out wider and therefore open the entry. And this time, though, he's not as close, and Brunt's with him this time, so this could be, rather than a fight for 5th, it could be a change of position for 6th here, Dave, as we come down the straightaway one more time.
Yeah, Pluck's definitely got good speed. He's good on the brakes, and he's getting towards the apex quickly, but it's from that apex to the track out that he's losing time. Brunt has got a great slipstream there, and he's just going to sneak it down the inside. Well done.
Yeah, he was there well in advance, and this time not waiting one more lap than he needs to, so...
Finds himself between two ferns.
Indeed, up to P6, leading Audi in the field. So now his mission is to try and get locked back onto, or lock onto the bumper now of Pluck ahead of him and get himself into that top 5. We'll see what he can do. 8 laps on the board. But he's got Kirk behind, who's clearly got good speed still, because he's not willing to let go of that 6th place that he's just lost. So that could flip-flop and change here pretty soon, but Brunt's looking pretty consistent here, so it's a matter of can he get up to the bumper of Pluck, and we'll have to see what's the drive like this time around out of Moss corner, because there's higher speed corners, strangely enough. That Hyundai is looking not too bad, but it's the slower speed stuff where he seems to be lacking mechanical rotation. Here we go into Moss, wide of the first apex. Gets the second apex, but he's a little bit tighter through that mid phase, but it doesn't seem to hurt him too much, as it turns out. So we'll see what we get in terms of slipstream. At the rate they're closing, I don't think Brunt's going to get there in time. He's going to have to worry potentially about Kirk, but... okay, I said maybe not, but he's going to get there, I think, right at the last possible opportunity. So he's going to have to commit late if he does it. And he thinks about it, but no, there isn't a move there. Matthew pulls back out of that attack and has to hang on to 6th for another lap at least. But Pluck, that's struggling there through the final couple of corners, David. So, again, maybe compromising the run through turn 9. That's hurting turn 10 as well, because here we go. Nose to tail, but never mind that. Kirk's up the inside of turn 1, maybe. No, not quite.
Kirk is still getting phenomenal drive off these corners, though, so that it just looks like it's got really good grip on the front as it gets out of the corners.
Certainly looks good. It's not wrong. As just jump on board with the 371 machine in particular. We watch here down through turn, well, had just turn 2 there, but now through Quebec at turn 3. And you can just see he's able to get that car to turn in and hook whilst keeping the power in it. So really important. But this time Brunt's all over the rear bumper of Pluck as we come down through turn 4. So nothing of it though into Moss. That Hyundai is able to sort itself out down the hill. And now it's a game of who gets the best run through Moss. It's pretty neutral at this stage. Brunt's closing a little bit on Pluck this time, though. I think this is going to be the chance that Brunt's looking for, because here we go down the Andretti straightaway. He's closing, and we're not even at the first part of the crest. So look out for the move here. Going to have to be the outside, though, at the end of the straight, I think. And indeed, has to look to the outside. He's got to go the long way around here through the S's, David.
Haven't seen anyone manage it yet. He just stands out a little wide, and if he had committed, he might have been able to have picked that back up, but right between the two apexes, not what he wanted, and he has to pit lane.
Well, that's very interesting indeed. Nothing showing up on iRacing, so that must... Oh dear, has he underfueled that car and made a pit stop, a setup error there in this race? Because, yeah, there's nothing on his name requiring him to come down the lane, and he's in the box. Just, yep, short stop. 3.3 seconds, must have been some fuel. So, a small mistake there from Brunt. That's certainly not what he would want to see. So the Kiwi sim racing cars are freed up to continue fighting amongst themselves, as there goes Brunt. And unfortunately, he's all the way back now in position number 13, David.
And while we've been looking at that fantastic three-way fight that's coming to an untimely end, Carl Sampson's broken away a little bit with that lead. Him and Hins for many, many laps just going back and forth, but Sampson's been able to break that toe out to about 2 seconds now and continuing to advance it.
Sampson showed good pace here in this series, David, and looks like he's continuing that trend indeed. Well, the big question to me is, looks like Reese Gardner, unfortunately, back and forth there as we look at his lap times compared to Thomas Hinz, gaining on lap 13, but more or less losing all of the momentum on lap 14. Gains back some more on 15, but having again at the Kiwi sim racing cars, Kirk looking for the, it was the outside of the S's, inside for 9. He's going to get the outside of turn 10, but look at the grip in that Honda in comparison. He just motors his way around the outside, David. He gets the spot finally after
Someone
what
check
feels
that thing
like
for 4-wheel drive.
maybe that's the answer to everything. But then again, look at that. Pluck immediately under pressure from Robert Crisdale in the 808 Audi as we jump on board with the Down Under Sim Esports driver here. Coming through turn 2. 5 laps to go on the board, so pressure is on. Has Matthew Pluck got anything left at the front end of that 51 Hyundai? It really looks like it's starting to struggle big time now, because look at that. Kirk's gone and he's immediately bolted, but trouble at the back of the field. Mark Noble and Zachary Vlasbom have picked up mechanical black flags. Here's Vlasbom going slowly. I think he must have run wide and out into the grass at turn 2. And right rear is busted. Mark Noble, unfortunately, well out in the gravel in what looks to be a completely separate incident to Vlasbom. As we wonder if
I would
race control summon the safety car. They do. Safety car deployed, so we're going to have ourselves a 2 to 3 lap dash to finish this one off. So just when we thought that, well, Samson starting to check out at the front, Gardner not quite closing in for P3, everything changes with the safety car out on track. So a chance to look at the Virtual Racing School replay. And it looks like, unfortunately, 2 incidents separate to each other, but basically at the same moment on track as we have a look first at the 57 of Zachary Vlasbom. Oh dear, he's found the fence at exit of turn 1, David. That's very rare, and as a result, breaks the right rear suspension, and that's why he's out in the grass at turn 2.
Needed to believe in himself and keep a little more throttle in it, unfortunately, but that is easily said after the fact, and that got very loose very quick, and the wall is not far away there. And I'm going to suggest, I think there's a bump down through Moss here. Well, yeah.
22, yep. 22 of Mark Noble, unfortunately wide of the preferred line, and yeah, left side takes an absolute beating before the front gets obliterated for good measure. So bad to worse for the 22 of Noble in this first race. Alex John down to the pit lane. Now, this is quite interesting here. He's been making his way forward steadily, but that's a long pit stop for him too. So 46 seconds stationary. Was that possibly getting
tires? Did he have a bit of repairs? I don't think if he had any. It was
no, I don't believe.
Edwards, who might have needed some, but has not taken any. I haven't seen much other car-to-car contact that could have resulted in any damage. So I think that's just a all-or-nothing gamble from Alex John to say, let's see if we can get a bit of tyre temperature and a bit more tyre grip right at the end. And he will, though, because he gets to race up to the back of this safety car train. He will have a bit of temp in those new tyres by the time he gets here, and they will be 18 laps fresher.
Yeah, this will be important indeed. I think, yeah, definitely 4 tyres. I think he's only lost about 3 or 4 spots. I reckon that's exactly why he's opted for this gamble here, is minimum positions lost on track means that he can now try for a late push here. We're going to have 2 to go when the safety car pulls in, as the car is still out. Safety car is still out on track here. Currently in the hands of Ben Christensen, the 001 Logitech G safety car tonight for that Porsche Cayman GT4. You see here has the field under his control as they make their way down the front straight. So 3 to go at this time by, but with the safety car still out on track, it's going to be a 2-lap dash to the line here. So yeah, Alex is not going to have a lot of time back there in 13th to make the fresh tyres work. And there's also a full grid invert with this second race, which we'll get to later on this evening, which will make quite a difference. So we're curious to see how things play out there for these guys. Look at them now. Bit of tyre temperature gain, bit of weaving, bit of acceleration braking maybe for some of these guys, but now the game is on to get the tyres up to temperature that you don't have a cold set of fronts, because around a track like this, cold fronts will be absolutely horrendous if you try and push after you're expecting, used to, I should say, warm tyres, and you go back to cool tyres all of a sudden. So this is going to be important. Does anyone push the car too hard on the opening lap on the restart here, David? Because that could easily cause drama. Chance of a safety car again, probably low. I would expect that the race control intend for this race to finish under green. So I would expect any incidents will just require cars to park it up and wait for permission to tow from race control whilst we keep the racing action on the track. So half a lap to go here before the safety car. We expect to see it pulling away and head into the pit lane down the Andretti straightaway. Come through Moss. Indeed, safety car is instructed to pull away from the field, David. So 2-lap dash, and it's now, well, top 3 cars I think have got a good chance of taking a good chance at this win. If Hin's got a chance to get those tyres to come back to him. So we see here Gardner trying to keep every bit of tyre temp in the fronts as he's weaving. Although the safety car pulled away, he probably wants to stop weaving pretty soon, I would think.
He's looked pretty good in the last handful of laps, though. His average lap times have been good, and now he's right with Hinz and Sampson, and Hinz's pace has just dropped off a little bit, but we'll see what happens. I think it's all bets off.
Absolutely. The safety car does give those guys at the front of the field a chance for their tyres to calm down a fraction. Might be helpful as much as it might be treacherous here on this restart lap. So we're waiting now for Sampson to go, and there it is through turn 9. He puts the foot down. That is quite early because it means the field's going to have to go with him here through turn 10, but we are back to green flag racing. 2 laps on the board. It's an all-out sprint to the finish line. We reckon there's 3 cars in it at the front for the win, David. Anyone else got a chance to steal it away here as we get back to racing speed?
Oh, I like that restart from Robert Northway. He was all over Crisdale, and it was one of the closest we saw as Gardner's picked up a little bit of the grass on the outside of one, and that stunted his run. So here's Northway, less than a car's length in this one. He's immediately turned the burner on high.
That's a good restart then from Northway indeed. Looking to try and get past Crisdale and get a chance to go after Matthew Pluck, you would think, but what you would make it a Kiwi sim racing dominated top 10. They've got drivers 1st, 4th, 5th.
Mr. Fresh Tyres.
And here comes Alex John. He's already up 1 spot, so dispatched of Isaac Edwards pretty quickly there. Shane Best next on the cards, but back to the top 3 because here we go through Moss Corner. I'm just looking at the drivers here through Moss Corner, how many different lines we got, but down the straight we go, Andretti straightaway, and yeah, look at that, Hinz already a little bit vulnerable compared to Sampson. So here comes Reece Gardner as we right on board with the 94. Closing down here on the Andretti straightaway. Going to have to be a bit of a late move, I reckon, though, if he's going to pull this off. Hinz is starting to go defensive. So there's a car width there, but it's just only a car's width, so nothing coming this time by. Approaching 1 lap to go here, David. Sampson looks to be holding onto the lead pretty comfortably here, and Hinz is compromised through turn 9. That's exactly what Reece wants to see, so he's all over the rear bumper. White flag is in the air here as we cross the line. 1 to go.
This is going to let Sampson get away for this particular lap, as long as they keep fighting like this behind him.
Oh, they will indeed. Reece is not going to let this one up. Look at that. He's forcing Hinz to push the track in every single millimetre. Nothing there at turn 1. There's not going to be an option here at turn 2. This is all about setting up the run for turns 3 and 4. As they come down the hill here to start this final lap, Gardner is giving all the pressure he can to that rear bumper of Hinz. That car is looking a little bit compromised to the 52. And look at that again. Out of turn 3, a little tighter from Gardner. He's got that gap to basically nothing. It's a 1/10 of a second, if not. And down the hill through turn 4 we go. No move surely out of turn 5. It's all about the setup out of Moss here. And look at that rotation and early from the 94. Looks decent through the corner, but Hinz is there too. Gap is 2/10 on the exit of the corner, down the straightaway. One last time.
He's right there. Vulnerable because Sampson's been weaving, trying to break the toe, and that leaves Hinz exposed.
And there we go. There's the overlap into the inside. Gardner gets the move done here partially. He's going to be alongside now. Where does Sampson go down the straightaway? He's over toward Hinz's side of the track, but look at that. Nose ahead for Gardner. Into turn 8 we go. Both drivers pushing very hard, but he gets the overlap cleared. P2 taken from Reece Gardner, but Hinz is not done yet. Up the inside of the final corner comes Hinz. Oh, he's left that to the last possible opportunity. Drag race to the line for P2. Gardner's ahead for now. And he holds on to P2. 2/100ths of a second was in it at the line. Make it 19 thousandths of a second. Oh, Hinsey almost set that up beautifully, but not quite able to get it back in the dying moments of that race there. But he knew he was beaten at turn 8, but he set that up beautifully through turns 9 and 10, David. As we're going to have a look at that one, I believe, on the virtual racing score replay here.
Yep, so this is the move that you always have to expect, the dive bomb into the final corner. It doesn't normally work in racing conditions, but as a last lap Hail Mary, you've got to expect that it's coming. And, well, great move by Reese the 2 corners beforehand, but he just didn't cover that off. Lucky to find enough traction and hold on to it by the skin of his nose.
Absolutely indeed. He's going to have a look at it again in real time here from the above cam. Yeah, Gardner just trying to make sure he gets a good run off of the final corner. It allows Hins to get that car fully alongside out of turn 10. And across the line they go. And you can just see from this angle that Hins doesn't quite have the move done. But there is maybe 20 centimeters in that, if that. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have a chance to have a look at the front end of that one to be sure, because, well, the racing action continues here from Mosport, but the results from the first of the 2-litre Tourist races tonight, Al Sampson able to hang on to that lead and a good restart there to secure the win in race 1 tonight. Reese Gardner, as you see there, just edging out Thomas Hins for second place. Well, 52 are going to have to stay happy with P3 there. Dylan Jordan able to hold on to P4, but not able to go with the front 3 there after the restart. Hayden Kirk settles into P5 ahead of Matthew Pluck pretty comfortably there, as it turns out, for 6th place. And then Ben Faulkner recovers to 7th with Matthew Brunt in 8th. Shane Best in 9th and Alex John rounding out the top 10 there. So up 3 spots with a late tyre change for the 77 there, David.
Yeah, restarted in 13th. 2 laps later, he's finished inside of the top 10. I think it was nothing ventured, nothing gained from where he was, and it's just about reached that break-even point for him. Behind that, Isaac Edwards and Robert Crisdale on the lead lap. What on earth happened to Robert Northway late on there? And Ryan Green with his... it all started with the start, or the lack of start from him, and that repairs put him 3 laps down. Zachary Flasbaum and Mark Noble, we saw their incidents, and that triggered the safety car that really lit a fire under that race for the final 3 laps.
Yeah, indeed. Well, there's a shot from the timing line, and yeah, call it 20, 30 centimeters. Basically nothing in it there. Definitely the right idea from Hins in terms of going for the last lap attack, but not able to quite make it stick. So well done to those two, though, to give us a run to the line that ends up clean and gives us a screenshot like this. Definitely makes for a good pick for that race there in particular. But we'll go to a quick break here because it's time for the next series of racing tonight. The Jetta Cup returns for its second outing of its season in the SCOPS Supports category this year, but we'll get that break in just now and be back for qualifying here for the Jetta Cup. Stay with us as we take a short intermission here. Welcome back to SimSpeed TV. The continuation of the Logitech G V8SCOPS Supports continues from Mosport tonight. Well, David Haynes alongside me in the commentary box. My name is Anna Yeaman and Jake Kennedy on production tonight. And well, I was going to say there, David, a great end to that first race in the 2-litre Tourer class, but it's now time to turn to the Jetta Cup as they're currently in the middle of their qualifying session for the two races that we will have back-to-back for the Jettas here tonight. This is our format. It's their second outing for the Jettas in particular, although round 3 of the overall SCOPS season means, well, it's a short calendar for the Jettas. We'll see them basically at every SCOPS round up until Bathurst, and then we shall say farewell to them there. But nevertheless, focusing here tonight, the 10-15 reverse sprint format, which is what we'll see for the majority of the season in these cars. 10 minutes sprint race first up with times determined, or grid places, pardon me, determined by qualifying here at this point in time, and then a full reverse for race 2, about a 15-minute longer duration to make up for that fact there, David.
Yeah, this is easily some of the closest racing you'll ever see. And qualifying...
In the bin! In the bin! For shame with that one.
That's where they ended up putting all of the ECUs for these cars. But regardless, times start to trickle in. Daniel Stevens was one of the first to the line, and he will go to the top. I don't think you gain a lot of performance from longer runs in qualifying in this car, and if anything, again, it's those front tyres and that front left that just gets worn, gets hot, gets slippery.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not much of a Jetta enthusiast to be able to say anything for certain about these cars when it comes to the way the tyres respond. But yeah, I am vaguely aware of the fact that these things, as far as cars go on the iRacing service, probably the most economical now when it comes to fuel consumption. So yeah, I doubt
they're
we'll be
also the
seeing...
most economical when it comes to setup options, because it's tyre pressures and fuel levels and tyre pressures and fuel levels.
Well, there you go, folks. So not a lot of adjustment available or required, depending on which way you look at it. So see here, halfway through qualifying now, these cars, it does take them a while to get around the track. So hard cut in the end of this qualifying session, David, once again. But actually, there we go. Pole sitter Dan Stevens, or provisional pole sitter at least that is, opts to immediately bring it down the lane and end his qualifying run after a single flying lap. Presumably, that will be to reset the fuel and tyres here, as Kyle Ridley comes across the line looking to steal the pole position away. And yeah, he does by just a comfortable, well, it was a comfortable 6/10, but he's been pipped by Ray Oliver, who's currently lapping in behind him there. And Simon Gorowski has made his way up into P3, and the gap from first to second, a mere 0.003 of a second. So basically nothing in it for the guys at the very front of this field right now.
That's always how it goes with these cars. It's so easy to get the 99.5% of pace and so difficult to get the rest. Look at Ben Christensen absolutely revving that thing out. 4,500, 4,800. What a screamer this diesel is. But it pulls pretty evenly all the way through the rev range as a turbo diesel. And at 2,500, it seems to make exactly the same power and torque as it does a bit higher up as well.
Well, textbook diesel engine in that case. A lot of torque down low. Power comes in pretty early. And just make sure you don't over-rev the car then, because there's not much to it. So down the Mario Andretti straightaway at what looks like an absolutely pedestrian view of the circuit. Still doing a decent bit of speed there. Actually, it's quite fascinating. This car is so susceptible to the rise and fall on this circuit. Just watching the rate of acceleration change as this car makes its way around the course. And, well, they're continuing to improve here. The car's at the very front of the field into the 133s for the first time. Car really able to improve. Ray Oliver, though, opting not to push on that lap, or something caused him to back out there all of a sudden. Ben Christensen across the line for his first time in the session. P10 though on a 135.67, so he'll hopefully be looking for a bit more pace. He's got one more chance to do it, given that the hard cut will mean that once we hit the 0, that's all done, and he doesn't have time to get 2 laps done at this stage. Aaron Gilbert, on the other hand, though, he looks like he's in position to get this lap done, and one more after it, so he'll get a chance to run that car a little bit longer here, as he's on a 135.1. That's good enough for 7th at the moment, but he'll definitely be looking to move his way up the field here at the end of qualifying.
Only driver right now that's improved their first sector. We know that the end of the second sector is right at the braking zone here, and he goes about 0.2 short of his best in sector 2 and needed a couple goes at getting it to turn in to the S's and at the end of the straight there. Gilbert has been this entire session on the one set of tyres as well, so they might just be a little hot, a little ballooning at the minute.
Maybe, but gets under the 135 bracket and moves himself up into P6. 134.838. He's just got enough time here to press on and make this his final run here. So be looking to get every last little bit of speed out of this car, it would seem, and make his way down the hill through turn 2. And look at that. The car is leaning on the tyres and working them for every little bit they've got left. Meanwhile, Reese Harnell on the 222. This is going to be his final chance to set a lap. Can he improve from a 135.4 as he comes across the line? He's going to be close. He does improve, but unfortunately, a 135.241. That will be good enough to actually... Oh, no, pardon me. He's on a 135.1 already, so no improvement there from the 222. As I just saw someone shuffle in the timing order there in the mid-pack. Dan Stevens getting a move up the field to P4 there. That will be his qualifying session done due to the elapsed time. So 4th is the best for him as Reese Gardner's on his way down the back straight. And looking to improve on a 134.85. Personal best sector 1. What's his sector 2 like? We'll find out in a moment here.
He's going to get to the line with like 2 seconds left on the clock based on this.
Yeah. This is going to be touch and go for the 94 as we come through the final corner complex. That's just how slow these cars are. Just leaning on the tyres here. Clock ticks down to 10 seconds. He's just going to get there, as you say. In fact, oh, that's pretty good money on saying 2 seconds at the line as we come across it. And bang, there it is. 2 seconds on the dot. And a good time from Reese Gardner right at the dying moments. Elevates him to P3 on the grid for race 1 here, David.
Yeah, best for last right there, and it puts him onto row number 2.
Oh,
okay, shot on the grid then. Kyle Ridley for pole position. Ray Oliver going to be just behind him and offset in 2nd. Gardner is going to start out at 3rd, and Simon Gorofsky in 4th. Stevens and Scott Stephens for row 3. And then the remainder of them there. Aaron Gilbert, Linton Wills, Reese Harnell, and Ben Christensen.
Indeed. 10 Jettas out on track tonight. Henry King will be serving as the safety car in case it is needed for emergency purposes. So we'll see what we get here. Just waiting on the last couple of cars to join the grid. And then we'll be able to get this one underway in a moment's time. Well, it's a down under Sim Esports all front row. Unfortunately, missing the paint job from that 27 on pole. So we just await the last couple of cars, actually, I believe, because we've got the manual
all
safety
bar
car.
the safety car, yeah.
Indeed, because we've got the manual safety car in the session, the grid timer will be run all the way to its course. So 30 seconds before we get this one underway here. And, well, 10 minutes of flat-out action in these cars. Just seen here that, again, they can continue to pick up speed throughout the session, it would seem. So it's just going to be a matter of when you get the job done for these cars. And then we're going to go into a micro break of 1 minute. So call that basically a drink of water break, but then straight back into it for a 15-minute race, fully inverted grid. So be very curious to see how that one plays out. Well, time is at 2 minutes. Now we wait for the revs. And there they should be, but very quiet from these cars. So here we go with the Jetta Cup, second round of their season, and it's lights out, and away we go A lot of tyre smoke, and someone making his move through the field is going to be Reese Harnell. He's already charging up the field there. Made up at least 3 spots off the race start. That's a great launch from the 222 there, David. We just see here at the back of the field, Scott Stevens, unfortunately, has had the nightmare start, going all the way back 10th from P number 6 here.
Talk just treading the tyres for everyone around Reese Harnell, and he slotted the gap, went down the middle, picked up a big bunch of positions. You can see that that's moved him up into 6th. My money for the longer race here is going to be on Reese Gardner, though, because he's been very good at managing that heat and that tyre pressure and those temperatures, and he's already off to a pretty decent start here as well.
Well, he actually lost a spot to a very rapid launch from Dan Stevens, who made up 2 spots to get ahead of Gardner in the run to turn 1, but you can see here Gardner pressing all the way, but unfortunately trouble for Scott Stevens. He is dead last. Well, already last, but now he's way off the back of the pack, so that's not gone well for the 5:51 here on lap number 1. We have a look back at this front pack, and Gardner's actually lost out to Simon Gorowski. We're trying to fight back to Dan Stevens, so Stevens holds on to P3 up 2 spots. Gardner is down to where Stevens started, so basically a +2 -2 switch, and Gorowski able to slot himself back in to hang on to where he started the race. But look at this through turn 8. Oh, very hot through the middle of the corner, and potentially a bit compromised. Gardner all over the rear end of that 326, trying to get back up towards where he started this race here.
Yeah, no doubt. It hasn't been a perfect start or launch from him, despite a good qualifying. Goodness, this is going to feel like a pretty short race at these speeds in just 10 minutes around Mosport.
Yeah, probably looking at about 7 laps here tonight in this first one. Might even be 6, depending on how the next couple of laps go, because a 142, 143 opener. Pretty lengthy there. I think it's down into turn 3. Gardner continuing to pressure the back of Gorowski and just using all of the track from inside to outside there. Doesn't quite work out in terms of momentum, it would seem, out of turn 3, but gives him a little bit of space. We head down through turn 4 into Moss at 5. You can just see at the front of the shot there, race leaders. Ridley still leads Oliver, but they are nose-to-tail teammates from down under Sim Esports. We'll be looking to try and work together here. See now a bit of a train starting to form in behind Dan Stevens for P3. So here's a shot from our race leader, and it's a healthy half-second gap, 4/10 starting to close those. So the slipstream is very much relevant for even these cars. And look at the way Ray Oliver's coming. That's very quick gain here down the end of the straight. Not quite going to be there, I don't think.
Camera angle.
Okay, yeah, true. Oh, Jay, you didn't. I'm delightfully informed by Jay Kennedy as he's pulling his own April Fools on me by adjusting the cameras whilst we're watching that one. So, thanks, Jay. Much appreciated. Love your work. But let's have a look here at that fight for P3 as we're talking about it, because here comes Gorowski looking for the inside at turn 1. And he's almost there, but held tight to the inside. And Reese Gardner, meanwhile, was opting for the outside. He's going to look for the inside move at turn 2. This was going to be riskier than any front-wheel drive car. And, in fact, it's forced Gorowski out of the grass. Oh, he just holds on to it as Ben Christensen's coming through. And that means it's now +5 for the number 9 of Christensen. But, unfortunately, Gorowski is now starting to slide backwards into 6th place here. Getting that car recovered now, I think. But under pressure from Aaron Gilbert, Reese Harnell, and Linton Wills for the next couple of corners at least here.
If you're not close, don't look down the inside of turn 1 because it just leads nowhere. And as you can see, you don't want to be around the outside for turn number 2. A dangerous place to be. And that look into turn 1 just went nowhere, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think just in the case there where Stevens able to just pincer him down to the inside line there. And that was enough to hold him up as we go back to the front of the field. You can see there, Oliver closing in gradually, but looks like he's going to need to cut that gap down to around 0.2 of a second on the exit of Moss Corner rather than about 0.4. You can just see they're really much more willing to commit deeply into turn 8 as that's a change of position. Reese Harnell moving forward again and up into P7 there at the end of the back straight. Gilbert's not ready to give up just yet, but is going to have to slot back in line here for the time being, it would seem, David.
Yep. It's almost the halfway point of this racing, but they've already crossed the line. So I reckon that is going to give them 7 not 6 laps in this one. Peak speeds on the Andretti straight of 195 compared to 190 for Kyle Ridley, who's led the whole way so far, hasn't picked up any of that slipstream. So there is 4 or 5 kilometers potentially to be found at that slipstream down the back straight. It seems like nothing separates our drivers everywhere else.
Indeed. Look at this. Reece Gardner looking to get back on the bumper of Dan Stevens. And, well, he's already out the rear bumper. He's trying to get around that bumper now. So looks to the outside of turn 4, but that was clearly just a bit of a fake out. And now the crucial setup through. Moss here looks pretty good on exit. And the question is, though, at about just over 0.3 of a second, has he got enough to close it down here as we make the run? Look at them now. A little bit of movement down the straight, trying to line right up in behind the car ahead. So Gardner looking to pass Stevens. Meanwhile, just behind them, Gorowski looking to get the move on past Ben Christensen and recover some of his spots from the start of this race. So we've got 2x2 side by side at the end of the back straight. The tyres, though, they can't hang on. So nothing of it in that particular one. As we have a look at Scott Stevens looking to pass Linton Wills and try and recover a little something there for the 551. And oh no, that was side by side contact. And oh goodness me, Stevens up into the grass between turns 8 and 9. That's about the worst possible place. He's able to just hang on to it, though, thankfully, and keep on racing. Those two guys fighting hard over 9th spot. Meanwhile, we should turn our eyes back to this battle for P3 because it's becoming almost one super battle. A quick look at it again here, and you can see here Stevens run right to the edge of the circuit and barely hangs on. The grass beckons back to live pitches because this has now become not two battles of 2. It's more or less one 4-way fight, and there's another 2 cars coming to join the party. So this could easily be one of 6 drivers getting the win in second. There's 2x2 again as we go over the hill on turn 4, David, this time.
Interesting move from Reece Gardner here to come around the outside to get the inside for Moss. He tries to park it there, and there's drama.
Oh, was it an attack from the rear for Dan Stevens? I think so, and has to pull across to the right side of the track. Justice, we've got 3 wide on the exit of Moss's Aaron Gilbert charging past Ben Christensen, who's had to back out of that maneuver as well. And look at them all.
Is Christensen steering all right?
Hard to say. That front end looks a little bit rough. Nothing reported on iRacing as we look here at the cockpit.
I think he just lost his momentum because the Gilbert slid down the middle and they made a little bit of contact, and I thought maybe it had picked up the front right tyre on Christensen, but I think it's just cost him all of his momentum. And of course, in a group like this, call it a diesel train, you're just going to lose a handful of spots.
Scratch one off the pun list from David Haynes once more, folks. As you can see here, Arnell looking to pressure will be, Gorowski, who's back up to his starting place of 4th and desperately trying to hang on to it once again. But look at this. Wide through turn 2, but we'll have a look at that in a second. So here's what happened on that replay thanks to Virtual Racing. Indeed, look at that, firing in as Ben Christensen. Stevens hung out wide through the first part of the Moss Corner complex. Has to, gets given a bit of a serve in there and on the rejoin. All pretty safe there. And we get 3 wide once. And then Christensen out wide as Stevens comes across and Gilbert slides it up the middle. Not much left in it there between those 3 guys. And yeah, a little bump there. Just rubs the right front of Christensen, but no further damage done, it would seem, at this stage. As these guys continue to fight over P4. Reece Gardner, meanwhile, has been able to check out and looks to have P3 all wrapped up by himself there now as a result of all of that one there.
Yeah, he says bye-bye. They're going to be coming to the white flag this time. Ridley and Oliver still half a second for the lead, and then everyone else is, boom, here in this shot. At the bulk of the field in this group. All battling for that final podium position before Gardner started to check out with it. Gilbert on the inside. Harnell is going to get hung out to dry there, potentially.
Him hanging around. He's going to try and get that car slowed up, though, for the final corner as we get that white flag from Barney on the stand. So, indeed, car really leads Ray Oliver across the line. He's increased the gap from about 0.4 to half a second, if not 0.6. So, I don't think there's going to be much of a change there unless something unexpected happens. And now Christensen looking up the inside of Dan Stevens there. And he gets the job done at turn 1, or final turn. Oh no, contact between Christensen and Stevens, and the number 9 is around. And now it's looking a lot worse for wear.
I don't know,
not
it was
so
a messy
sure.
one regardless, and it's closed up front as well.
Indeed, I didn't think Ray Oliver was going to be here, but it's gone from half a second to 2 to 3 tenths. The exit out of Moss is the all-important factor. Who gets the better run and more power down first? The answer is pretty neutral. Gaps up to 4 tenths of a second between these two. I don't think Oliver's going to have a chance to close it up as a result, but we'll have to wait and see. Down the Andretti straight away one final time. He's closing the gap now from 4 tenths to 3 tenths, but with the way these cars seem to close, I don't think it's enough unless he can bait an open entry into turn 8 and fire one up the inside. That seems to be the only option. He's on the outside now, but Ridley holds the inside for 8, so the only way this works here is if he really forces Ridley into a bad line through turn 9, shows the nose, but I don't think it's going to be enough unless he can get Ridley narrow here and flick underneath. But he's going to try and go the long way around at turn 10 here, David, closing the gap. I think they're a bit of a formation finish from the Down Under Semi-Sport boys.
Any other
Ridley,
angle, except for those brake lights.
Ridley allowed to hang on to the race win ahead of Ray Oliver. As the rest of the field comes across, Gardner in third, Gorosky in fourth, and then Aaron Gilbert able to hang on to P5 there. And, well, it was looking close there for a second, but yet the brake lights tell all from that angle there. And, well, no surprises there. The two boys in team colours. We see Ben Christensen, unfortunately, limp his way across the line to 10th place for the end of that one there. So, a quick look through your race results. Kai Ridley confirmed the race winner just ahead of Ray Oliver there. Nice little formation finish for the Down Under Semi-Sport boys. Reece Gardner brings it home in third place there in the end of that one, ahead of the battle pack, led by Simon Gorosky in fourth, Aaron Gilbert fifth, Reese Harnell sixth, Dan Stevens in seventh, and then Scott Stevens and Linton Wills eighth and ninth. A rough race for the pair of them. And then Ben Christensen, a destroyed engine wasn't enough to hold him back. So he gets it across the line to take the checkered flag in 10th, but
Was it destroyed?
halfway
That's how they all look to me.
well, his engine was blown, and his front end certainly was crumpled, but he most 10-year-old model, says
If
director
you could
Jay
see
Kennedy.
NOx particulates, that's what every Jetta would look like to you.
Well, I suppose you're not wrong there, folks, but I'm going to suspect something a little bit more, well, not sinister, a little bit more damaged. Might
It was a big hit
explain
to
things there.
the wall that we just didn't quite see a whole lot of, but it's you get tempted to pass in that opening sector, and it's tough to do because there's no big braking zones. And you carry a lot of speed towards the apex at 1 and 2.
Indeed. Well, it's a full invert grid, which actually means there's a safety car on pole position for this one here. Since it's a safety car, we'll have to ignore that one there. So Ben Christensen is effectively your pole sitter for this second and final race for the Jetta Cup, David. He'll be alongside Linton Wills sorts, because we now sort of got the grid all in funny order. So consider it Christensen and Wills on the front row, and then Scott Stevens alongside Dan Stevens for row number 2, quote unquote. Reese Harnell and Alan Gilbert out of 5 and 6, and then Simon Gorosky, Reece Gardner 7 and 8, and leaving Ray Oliver and Kyle Ridley to round out the grid here, although they will be slightly offset. Just waiting now on the end of the timer, and not long now before we get this race underway.
If Harnell gets the same kind of start in race 2 that he got in race 1, he'll be leading this before they get in towards turn 1. So he's absolutely mastered where the bite point is for these cars. Let's go.
All right, revs have risen. I hope you can hear them as we wait for the green flag from Bayern to get the final race underway. 15 minutes on the clock, and there we go. Race 2 is underway, and best start, I think, goes to Scott Stevens there on the right side of the screen. Dan Stevens up the inside is going to clear our pole sitter of Ben Christensen. So, looking at the Stevens side by side through turn 1. Oh, no! Trouble for Dan Stevens this time, though. He's sent to the fence by Scott Stevens, and then they come together behind him as, oh my goodness, that's 4 cars in the grass, David. They've all gone for a trip out wide, and into the fence for several of them as well. Goodness me. Reece Harnell, Aaron Gilbert, Scott Stevens, Linton Wills is damaged as well. They've all gone for an absolute dive, and Ben Christensen has got the race lead back. But for how long? Because here comes Dan Stevens up his inside, and Reece Gardner's right there for third as well.
So big incident on those cold tyres into turn number 2. It's taken out a big old handful of cars, but they're built like tanks. All of them have gotten back going again somehow. And look at that, Gardner pulling out because he's looking for a bit of a move here as well.
Yeah, he's not going to wait around on begging Christensen. The question is, can Christensen get back into the slipstream tow or slipstream train? Words are hard today, apparently. I apologise. The answer is no. And Ray Oliver is able to slot in there to move himself up into P3. So here's the leading pack. Half the field now is still together. And, well, it's most likely one of these 5 cars on with a chance of winning. Simon Gorowski's back of shot there, but 5 seconds off the race leader. And then it's Linton Wills continuing on, but he's got a bit of damage, so we'll see how much his speed is affected. A chance to look at that replay again for the start. And look at that there. Dan Stevens is fired to the fence. And then we've got Harnell leans on Scott Stevens. Gorowski's off in the grass momentarily. We've got, oh my goodness me, Aaron Gilbert in the back of shot, but Scott Stevens firing hard into the tyre bundle at the bottom of turn 2. Minor miracle that car doesn't just give up on him there immediately as we go back to live pictures.
Uninvolved in all of that was the race leader just driving off the track. Absolutely nutty. Everyone totally misjudging the speed in towards turn number 2.
He's on board with Scott. So this is on board with Scott. Yeah, on board with Scott Stevens. There's Reece Harnell with the bump, and then yeah, into the tyres, and the car goes up and over. And
Sixth landing and keeps going.
Alone, Aaron, you're back to light pitches though. Trouble at Moss. Oh no, Reece Gardner around. Ben Christensen around again. Dan Stevens was involved somewhat as well. And oh boy, trouble for the top 5, and it now is down to 3. On the replay once again, so look at this. Dan Stevens goes wide at Moss, having been passed by Ray Oliver, and then just bumps into Gardner, who then collects Christensen as a result of it. Also, just a chain reaction, all starting with a small mistake from Dan Stevens at the front of the field. It now gives the race lead to Ray Oliver, and he's already got 1.3 seconds, and he's checking out well, he was checking out, but a slightly wide run through the final penultimate corner there is going to allow that gap to ebb and flow a little bit here. So we did have 5 in it, but we're back to 3 to 11 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock here, David, though.
What has happened in the opening 2 laps?
I can't tell you. I wish I could, but unfortunately,
So
I do
5
not
cars
have...
drove off the track, right? And then
Yes.
5 continued in a 5-way battle for the lead. And then 4 of them came together. Now Ray Oliver's leading from Daniel Stevens, Kyle Ridley, and that's about it up front. You've got a big old gap to Gorowski, who I think has emerged unscathed somehow.
I think so, yeah. Gorowski did run momentarily wide at the bottom of turn 2 on lap 1, but he did it all by himself, so he just gathered it back up and kept on going whilst everyone else sort of piloted off the circuit down at the bottom of the hill. But yes, he's now in a bubble of his own, and actually looks like he might be being caught by Linton Wills and Aaron Gilbert behind him. As you see there in the back of shot. We'll worry about that later, though, because here comes Kyle Ridley. Slipstream past Dan Stevens. He's got them. He's ahead now. He's got to finish the move off here at turn number 8. But Stevens on the inside. There's nowhere near enough grip, apparently, on the outside of turn 8 to get the job done. So, number 1 able to hold on to the P2 position 4 now. So we have a look back at Gilbert, following Linton Wills around as they both try and close in on Gorowski for P4 as Gorowski's into the pit lane unexpectedly there. Oh, that'll be why. Yep, okay, so he actually has received pretty substantial damage on lap 1 and joins Scott Stevens and Reece Gardner. So disaster for the Fusion Sim Racing pair who are in on the lane, and Gorowski joins them as well. So that's an unfortunate reason, and we're going to have a look at exactly what caused it. So, oh no, all by himself at turn 2. And, Tokyo Drift would like to see you, but, well, instantly cancels the appointment there, David. Left front, not too happy about that one there at all.
Dangerous day to be a wall or tyre bundle in turn 2 today.
They just want some love and affection, but unfortunately it's just rebounding straight off them.
Yeah, they're getting lots of little boops. Volkswagen do what Volkswagen does though, because you've got a couple 2-car battles forming up. You've got this over second place, Stevens and Ridley. Wills and Gilbert battling as well. Definitely do favour the inside line for this right-handed. Rarely you see someone able to hold it around the outside.
Yeah, we're seeing it once again. Stevens able to hang it on, but Ridley tried to keep a little bit more speed in it through turn 8. But look at that. Stevens compromised through turn 9. That's going to allow Ridley to absolutely close in here on the exit of turn 10. Meanwhile, Gilbert and Wills are going at it again. They're now fighting over 4th place as a result of the retirements. Effectively, Ridley up the inside turn 1. Meanwhile, look at that there. Almost gets the job done, but once again, turn 2 is turn 1, pardon me, is not the place to be on the inside, and has to fall back in line. Gilbert's close, but not able to make anything work just yet. But it's all part of the setup, you would think, at this stage for a move later on in the lap. See here, who's got the better line through turn 3? Looks like it's Ridley so far. And yeah, better exit out of turn 3. Oh no, just I'm talking about the battle for P2. Linton Wills goes around and almost goes over onto his roof. Holds it up on 2 wheels for a second, but unfortunately, his fight for P4 is done, and he yields the spot.
He finds a wall out there, but what he doesn't find out there is any meatballs. So that car's going to keep going, but it's just so tough in that turn number 2. I don't think the track's gotten any hotter from race 1 to race 2 either. So I'm not sure why all of a sudden everyone wants to run off the track at turn number 2.
To wonder about that some more, I think, because, yeah, I don't have any answers for you on that one. This time down at turn 8, Ridley is well ahead, but look at the move from Dan Stevens, just throws it back up the inside. It's not enough, though. Ridley's be able to hang on to the same position. It's a question of who gets the best run through 9 and 10. Stevens now on the inside, but he's going to be compromised, I think, so now he's going to be on the bad line for turn 1, I reckon, and there we go. Ridley around the outside. He's almost clear of the number 1 of Stevens. And he's clear before we turn into turn 1. So it took a couple of corners to get the job done there, David. But finally, that change of position occurs a little wide on the exit, but that doesn't seem to have hurt him too much in this case.
From driving styles, because Ridley's really using a lot of aggressive little taps on the brake to make the car rotate, and Stevens is rolling it in. This is going to be...
Yeah, just pressure wide, I think, David.
Mm-hmm.
Holds the door open for Aaron Gilbert just in case. Wasn't needed, and then we can just see him there bop up on the right side tyres. But no falling off the car. Meanwhile, Ridley and Stevens continue to go at it. Ridley inches from running off the track there and finding the grass to absolutely destroy the run out of Moss, but more or less works well for him there. So down the back straight they go, less than 6 minutes on the clock, and he's just got a bit of a gap here, and he'll be safe for this one. The question is, can Stevens hang on to the back end of Ridley? Because based on race 1 pace, Ridley should be able to close in perhaps. Oh, well, I should be curious to see, can Ridley close in on Oliver here? Because Oliver has set a 134.3 at the front of the field, fastest lap of the race there. Now with clean air, what can Kyle Ridley do here? Has he got anything in response? Across the line he goes, 134.5, actually 3/10 quicker. So a bit of fluctuation from Ray Oliver at the front of the field on lap pace. So if Kyle can find, it's going to have to be, though, 3.4 seconds. He's got to find quite a bit of time to make it work. But half a second here or there.
Start reading off the same page as they did in race 1.
Maybe that could do it.
Add to the photo album.
Well, that would be nice, but that would mean Ray Oliver has to back off quite a bit unless Kyle can unlock the magic booster here on this on his Jetta, I would think, but we'll have to wait and see. So he comes through Moss once again, and that's a pretty good line there indeed. Nice and wide through the middle part, but absolutely nailing the apex and planting the foot down to use all of the exit space. And yeah, he's checking out. Gap is 1.5 seconds to Dan Stevens. So unfortunately, that number 1 car doesn't quite have anything more to
Ridley's motoring, though. Oh, he went purple in the first sector. Ray Oliver's gone purple in the second sector. Ridley's gone personal best in that sector. So they have just gotten just enough clean air to find their rhythm, that clean space, and push on.
Yeah, so back and forth from the Down Under Sim Esport boys. Across the line we go, a 34.5 for Oliver and that one there, and 34.2 from Ridley. So that first sector and that third sector, just a little bit better. Well, first sector was actually quite a bit better than what Oliver had. So Ridley's got some very good speed through this opening half of the lap, where it's all about the high speed momentum and nailing the lines. If he can do that a couple more times, the gap will close a bit, but it's still 2.9 seconds. So with 3 laps on the clock here, David, I think unfortunately we're not going to see much in terms of fighting. The top 3 should stay as they are, barring anything dramatic, and behind them, well, then it's all pretty spaced out. So unfortunately, a lot of driving single-man shots here to end this one after the battle classes we saw to finish off the first race. But still could happen. 2 laps to go. Can't count anything out.
Ridley's trying for it. He is motoring.
Another faster sector 1. That was almost 0.3 as better than Oliver. Comes across the line, still marginally slower than Oliver in sector 2. It's fascinating to see that, actually.
I mean, it's all just got to be a compromise at Moss, because you can get a fast sector 1 by bombing it in deep there, but the drive off that section is the biggest determinant of your time through sector number 2, isn't it? So I think that might be the slight difference in their driving style.
Yeah, a 134.3 versus a 134.9. Certainly closing the gap, but it's going to have to be like a second per lap, if that. Or more, it's going to take more than a second per lap to really reel him in for a proper go on the final lap. So unless a mistake comes out of Ray Oliver, which again, yeah, I still doubt that. But you can see here Ridley still really leaning on that car through sector 1 here. So definitely pushing to make another purple sector, I would think. It's just a question, yeah, of whether he can get it pulled up for Moss enough to not hurt that sector as much. But clearly opting to press here in the opening part of the lap once again. Not quite as fast this time by David, but still decent pace out of both cars at the front of the field here.
See, he just didn't trouble that outside curb through Moss as much as I think others have done, and that's where that second sector pace might be just missing for Ridley as we watch Christensen hunt down Aaron Gilbert. See, he gets a lot closer to that outside curb, gives him a wide entry to hopefully get good speed off that final apex of Moss, and then get some fuel-efficient motoring down the highway.
That's a good way to put it here. As we have a look at the lap times between Ben Christensen and Aaron Gilbert ahead of him, and again, quite a bit of back and forth between these two guys, and quite substantial variation as well. And you can see here, last lap alone, almost a second taken out of Gilbert by the number 9 of Christensen. But white flag is in the air this time by. It's going to have to be a monumental final lap, or a monumentally bad final lap, I should also perhaps suggest, from Gilbert for that to change. Likewise here at the front of the field, Ridley is continuing to catch it 6/7 of a lap, but that's not going to be enough. Still a 1.5 second gap here as they make their way through into sector 1, and he's closing very quickly through the opening sector, but surely now this is a done deal. And actually, I wouldn't be too surprised if Oliver is beginning to back this one up here
to get us that again.
Get ready for the camera shots here and through.
Oliver's just consistently lost 0.4 across every sector, soft pedaling this one.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it indeed. Half a second loss in the opening sector. Gap comes down to 1.2. And yeah, even slower than Dan Stevens by about 0.3. So yeah, Ray Oliver clearly opting to play it safe and try and get that photo shoot opportunity lined up here. As we come down the Mario Andretti straight away for the final time in the Jetta Cup. 3 turns to go for the race leaders. Nothing looking too astray here, but again, yeah, that gap's down to half a second. Oh no, David, is he going to go for the move on the final straightaway? What could possibly happen here? But nope. Overpulls Ray Oliver. And into shot comes Kyle Ridley right as they cross the finish line there.
They did it better in race number 1, but Christensen's still on here.
Yeah, let's go back to some actual fighting on track. So they were closing, and Christensen has put the foot down here on this final lap. He's looking narrow the final corner, but I don't think that's going to work. And yeah, no, Aaron Gilbert's going to hang on for P number 4 ahead of Christensen. I think Christensen there thinking maybe about the move up the inside, but not able to get it to connect there as it would turn out. So there's your formation finish from the Down Under Sim Esport boys at the front of the field. So a quick look through your race results. That is the race 1 results, unfortunately. So we'll have to wait on everyone to cross the line to get us our second race results here. And ta-da, there we go. Much love to you, iRacing. Well, Ray Oliver doing the goods this time for the number 99 Down Under Sim Esports ahead of Kyle Ridley there. But able to close that gap up for a nice bit of photo opportunity work. And they clear out ahead of Dan Stevens, who holds on the P3 after that chaos that saw him in the fence on the exit of turn 1, David. So a remarkable turnaround for him. And then Aaron Gilbert holds on the P4 ahead of Ben Christensen for P5. And then Linton Wills, unfortunately, a quiet race for himself back there in P6. Reece Harnell in 7th, and then our retirements of Simon Gorowski from 8th, Reece Gardner in 9th, and Scott Stevens rounding out our field in 10th here tonight. Well, stay with us for a little bit longer here, folks, but we're going to take a quick break as we get ready for the final race of anything. It's time to get back to the 2-litre Tourers for their second 21-lap race. Compulsory pit stop. Be back with you in just a moment's time.
What does it take to win? Is it something you're born with? Is it the grind? Every day. Gear up. Do battle. For the 10,000th time. Or is it pushing to your absolute limits? To be faster. Always faster. Insanely precise. Totally free and at one with the game. Or maybe it's just getting to that place where nothing else matters. Nothing in the way of winning.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in indoor series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back to SimSpeed TV. Thank you for staying with us as we get ready for the final race of the 2-litre Tourers. And my name's Danny Amon, David Haynes alongside me in the commentary box. Jay Kennedy, as always, on production. Well, David, it's a bit of a chaotic second race in the Jetta Cup, but come back to the TCR racing, which looked really good earlier on tonight. So we do it all over again. 21 laps or 40 minutes if we have a whole bunch of safety cars. But then again, we only had the one safety car due to just two completely unrelated incidents, as it would turn out. So couldn't be too much a concern. But a full reverse grid for this race based on the results from that earlier one, and also a compulsory pit stop for 2 tyres, which will shake things up a little bit there.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we had that safety car shake things up a little bit and give Alex John an opportunity to get wild on the strategy in race number 1. But then you can also take a similar kind of gamble here for race number 2. If you think there's going to be a safety car, then maybe you want to pit before that. We wait and see, but it's always interesting that the way the balance of the car so drastically changes on a new cold set of tyres for this style of race car.
Yes, indeed. Cold front tyres around a place like Mosport here will be quite risky if you're trying to push and get an undercut to work. So I'll be very curious to see if anyone gambles on an undercut here tonight. Would think the overcut might be the better option if you're looking after the tyres at least. And you know you've got the pace underneath you, and then come in that one lap later perhaps, and then know you've just got to hang on for one lap. So your car's currently out in a warm-up session, which we should see end shortly, so we can get that second race underway here very soon for you here on SimSpeed TV. Carl Sampson, our race 1 winner there, just completing a couple of practice laps, and into the lane he goes. So fortunately not a huge number of drivers out on track at the moment, but one of the cars is the number 222, Reece Harnell, coming back into his Jetta. Coming back into his TCR car after racing in the Jetta Cup just a moment ago. And looking to improve on his results from race number 1, where fortunately started 17th and ended up way back in 18th. So just about time to advance the session here for us. And sort of full grid invert means actually the safety cars are going to cause a bit of conniptions here for iRacing in terms of gridding positions. So that might mess things up a little bit. In fact, it's going to give Johnny Rowe the front row all to himself here, David.
Interesting little strategy to play. In the end, I don't think it's going to matter too greatly whether you've got a couple extra free meters.
It shouldn't make too much of it. We'll have to wait and see how we go. So any minute now, we'll be able to bring that grid to you and confirm it for you. We'll talk about it very soon. And now, yeah, drivers coming down onto the lane now. So simply awaiting the instructions from race control here, folks, for the session to advance, and then we'll be able to get to the grid and this second race here in the 2-litre Tourers. Now, my question for you, David, at this stage of the session, given we've got a full grid invert, is what do we think we're going to see out of those guys with the front-running pace, particularly Sampson, Gardner, and Hinz? Front 3 cars definitely had the pace to check out from everyone else here tonight. What do you think's going through their minds at this stage? Do we expect to see them play it sensible, or do you reckon we're going to see these guys try and rush for early positions up the track here?
I mean, we have seen you can make a lot of positions in the early laps without being drastically over risky. What I expect we might see, if some of them do struggle to move forward quickly, that they might then opt to go for that pit stop early.
Indeed. Well, now we await the grid as drivers will hopefully start making their way on there pretty soon. So Should be a short gridding time for this one now as the drivers make their way to the grid. And time to walk you through it. So Johnny Rowe is out there tonight. He will be on pole position for this second race. And then the next car to actually be in an actual grid position will be Reese Harnell on the 222 on row number 2 there. And then Mark Noble on the outside of row 3 is the next car who will be racing tonight. And going through the rest of the field as they finished race number 1, Zachary Vlasbom be out of what is the 7th grid spot with Ryan Green alongside him on the 4th row. Robert Northway and Robert Crisdale will share row number 5 here, David, and Isaac Edwards sharing row number 6 with Alex John here.
Yeah, so then Shane Best, Matthew Brunt, Benjamin Faulkner, Matthew Pluck, Hayden Kirk, Dylan Jordan, and then Hins, Reese Gardner, Carl Sampson. They're ready to go. Harnell with great front-wheel drive starts is my one to watch.
Let's see how we go. So green flag first. Oh, that's a jump start from the race leader, I think. And maybe a stall as well. Here they come. Everyone duck left, boys. Oh, the top 3. Oh, goodness me. One of the cars around. Is that... No. It is Carl Sampson. So there we go. Your race 1 winner. Entangled in trouble at the start of the race. So
Reese Gardner also stalled and going nowhere on that start. They all got it going. Big old front wheel drive drift. They'll get some heat into your rear tyres there from second place man now, Zachary Vlasbom.
Yeah,
Faulkner,
look at this.
Huge mover early too.
Yeah, they're moving hard. Faulkner is up 11 spots from his starting position. That is absolutely bonkers.
That includes the safety cars though.
Yeah, that is true. That will cause numbers and timing software to be a little bit cracked. That won't help things all that much.
Still a long way to go and a lot of positions to have made up before Moss on the first lap, and that looks like Green maybe going a little bit slowly. Is there enough damage for Sampson that he's not going to get it around? He's moving, but I think the suspension is kaput somewhere. He might only be one-wheel drive.
Yeah, there's got to be something seriously wrong with that car. Such a shame for our race 1 winner to get caught up in some rough launches from everyone else ahead of him like that, but car was stalled there and everyone moved across. He is one of the few who was unable to do so right at the end there, I think, but might want to get a moment if we can to look at that on replay before I say any more to be sure. Well, lap 1 done, David. It would seem that the reverse grids are bringing all the heat in this race, and unfortunately there's a couple of cars who didn't even take the start for this one as well. We're missing Alex John and Robert Northway from the starting lineup, so Matthew Brunt's just gone off. Oh dear, trouble for Matthew Brunt. He's already missed several laps. And the front left of Brunt's car is completely destroyed. I don't know if he's going to be able to limp that car back to pit lane. There he is. He's down at the end of the back straight, I believe.
It's not far to pit lane, but still, look at that. No good at all. And you might even get to this point where he goes to start trying to turn right. The weight will shift off the driven wheel and onto whatever on earth that is. And he might not be able to make a right-hand turn. They've come together and someone's off the track at Moss as well. So
Mark Noble's falling down the timing tower, and yet that's the 22 machine of Noble. Brunt's going to get it back into the pit lane here just. So he's okay, although the problem for him is he's outside the compulsory pit stop winner. So here's that race start replay on board with your winner, Carl Sampson. So yeah, Gardner does not get the start at all. And look at them, they start moving to the side mostly. Comes across and, oh no, that's the 1-2-2. Shane Best comes across too late to get clear of the stalled car at the front of the field. And then Sampson, yeah, looks like Sampson's car stalls out maybe, or is he's just waiting?
I think he might have a flat tyre there. Honestly, the suspension wasn't as bad as we'd seen for Brunt. This is what happened for Brunt.
Yeah, all by himself, unfortunately. Missed the race start and then breaks the left front, running wide at the S's, and has to limp that car back to the pits. He's also called his day done for this race as well. Sampson's back up to speed. He hasn't gone into the pits though, David, so I'm very confused as to what happened there. I think just
he might have stalled it and
stalled maybe, but yeah, I think it's generally very patient, I think, to make sure that he didn't trip himself up in any way, shape or form to get his race going. But he will now be reliant on a safety car to fix his race up. He could also, well, the other way his race gets saved here is if he gets his car down onto the pit lane, maybe. Actually, no, pit lane will be open at all times, so you'll want to wait for a pit stop, but we'll talk about that later because it's 3 wide down the end of the back straight, David. Zachary Vlasbom has been absolutely mauled by Matthew Pluck and Thomas Hinz and make that Ben Faulkner too. So it's going to be 3 spots lost for the 57 at the end of the back straight, I think. But no, Hinz comes down onto the pit lane early. He's opting to get his pit stop done as soon as possible. So lap 2, the pit window opened. And so onto the lane at the end of lap 3 comes your 52 out of position number 3. Let's have a look at another virtual racing score replay. This is Dylan Jordan in one of the Kiwi sim racing cars, and oh dear, too wide at Moss. That's not too good, and he's going to go mostly around, but just pulls it back together. But he's going to lose all those spots. The next pack of cars coming through.
Gave it to Jandal at the right time, though.
Yeah, Isaac Woods there, just pulling out to make a move there, I think, and that almost came undone in a hurry. Well, back to live pitches and back to the fight in that top 3. And Faulkner's got past Vlasbom, but had to work for it there for several corners, it would seem. But now finally gets ahead, and now Ben Faulkner can go off in pursuit of Matthew Pluck. So meanwhile, while all this is happening, Robert Christo has made his way to the front of the field and 5 seconds clear for good margin as well. So he's done an excellent job. Gained 9 spots off the start, although that also counts the safety cars just to mess with my head a little bit.
9 minus 3 is 6, by the way.
That's true. There were 3. Yes, that's going to make my life a lot easier if I just think about that. Meanwhile, double live pitches because there's 2x2 through turn 8. That is a messy little battle pack there involving Ryan Green, Reece Harnell, Ryan Green, Dylan Jordan, I believe, and Isaac Edwards. As Jordan the next to bring his car down onto pit lane there. Meanwhile, look at that there. That's Green having a look at the inside of Harnell, turn 1. We've not seen the inside line work many times around here so far tonight, but he's hanging on in there for now. But outside for turn 2 is going to be no good there, I would think. As more cars on the lanes. It's Johnny Rowe, Robert Crisdale, Hayden Kirk, Dylan Jordan, Reese Gardner, all pitting on end of lap 3 there. So here comes Thomas Hinz across the start-finish line as well. Who does he clear in the pit lane? In fact, he clears everyone. Oh dear. Why is Robert Crisdale...
Long stop for Crisdale. That almost looks like it's either been a speeding penalty or he's changed 4 tyres, and that's kind of disastrous for a guy who had a very, very handy lead that's just gone up in smoke in the pit lane. Another longish stop for Hayden Kirk as well, so drama's a little bit on the pit lane.
Yeah, I think that's 4 tyres, because Hinz stopped 24 seconds. Crisdale stopped 41 seconds. That's not long enough for the penalty, unless he opted to cancel all his pit service and serve just the penalty. But that would be pretty risky move to do. It would make a lot more sense to just sit there once in the box, get it over and done with. As Mark Noble brings the 22 machine down onto the lane as well. Out of position number 7 for him. So front of the field is now Ben Faulkner and Matthew Pluck, as we see here on screen. They're followed by Zachary Vlasbom. Question is now, how long do these guys stay out on track? Are they going to split the strategy halfway down the middle and look after the tyres? Trouble, though, for Ryan Green. He was pressuring Reece Harnell for P5, but that seems to have gone completely awry there. 9 seconds off track at turn 2. So, in fact, he's actually lost the spot there. He's been absolutely, oh dear, look at that, all wide by himself. Completely missed the line, and then gets passed by Edwards and Harnell. 2 for 1. And, well, thankfully, we were able to recover that car nice and easy and get back going, but not the way you want to get it done. Meanwhile, Shane Best in the lane. Times are ticking here. Shane already up past 35 seconds. That seems like a 4 tyre change for him, or maybe some damage at the front end of the car that he's opting to get repaired as well. So that's another very long stop for another driver out here tonight.
Him and Johnny Rowe too, so I think there's quite a lot of 4 tyre changes going on, which is not my understanding of the requirements. Is that a misreading or a big gamble on a late safety car?
Well, it's a very unusual thing to do because the TCR car of course, being driven from the front wheels means that so much more of the wear and load goes through those two tyres. You can get away with not changing the rears. In a sprint race, particularly like this tonight, you really shouldn't be thinking about the rear two tyres at all. You should only be doing those front two tyres to serve the compulsory requirements. So either that's it's a tactical error of some kind, whether it's not knowing the rules or not knowing how the car is best served by tyre change. Honestly, can't say, as unfortunately Shane Best has come out of the pits and he's gone well off at Moss. And, well, he's now enjoying a bit of a scenic trip through the grass there onto the back straight. As
everyone's pitted, Thomas Hinz is by far the leader of that group, 10 seconds clear of the next completely serviced car.
Well, that's a very important thing to note. We thought Hinz, though, maybe a little bit down on pace compared to some of the cars behind him at the end of the first sprint. It has progressed in time in the server, though, so it might have cooled down a fraction, but not too much, I don't think, which doesn't change much in all the seriousness. But he's going to, yes, 10 seconds clear of everyone else, lapping in the low 125. He's on pace with the race leaders. It's a question of where does Ben Faulkner and Matthew Pluck end up relative to Hinzi at the end of it all. 24 stationary and around 50 seconds to transit the cones.
Thomas Hinz is the fastest car on track in the last lap as well. 25.8 flat was just underneath the times done by Faulkner and Matthew Pluck, who lead the way out on track at the moment and have got to be his biggest competition.
Yeah, looking at the time, it's about 38 seconds up the road from Thomas Hinz to the race leaders. Based on those numbers, I think Hinz is quite comfortably inside the gap he needs to clear them off, because the cone-to-cone time in pit lane for a proper stop is about 50 seconds. So even once you account for the fact that you're rolling down the pit lane and that eliminates some of the time loss required, that's a lot longer from cone to cone than the gap that Hinzi's got.
Pretty close, because Hinzi's cone-to-cone time in the lane was 42 seconds, and you get to shortcut a little bit of the final corner. I think it's probably still advantage Thomas Hinz, because he's got the warm tyres, and he is, 38 seconds back with that 42-second lane transit. But I think it's still close. I think if Faulkner and Pluck fight each other really hard here, they're going to take their pit stops and be like, oh, Hinz has undercut us by a bit. But there's still hope for these two.
Yeah, they're both consistently locking into 125.8s or thereabouts. Actually, I think I was making a small error in my statement there, looking at the cone-to-cone times. And I think actually part of what that is that my timing software that I'm currently running, just on my end personally, doesn't count from the cone to cone. It actually goes from a little bit earlier once the car is inside the parameters of the pit entry beforehand. So a couple of seconds either side there make all the difference. And yeah, so if it's 42 seconds from the time you hit the limiter to the time you get back off the limiter, and the gap on track is, well, still at about 38 seconds or so, that should mean that's going to be close indeed. Looking back now at the battle for 8th, David, Carl Sampson on the recovery charge, but no pit stop from him just yet, so that will see him unfortunately slip back down the order once he gets that service out of the way. So he is currently out of sync with the drivers around him at this stage.
And Crisdale's been trying to get around him and has been unable and been a little bit unruly and a little wild. Here's the replay of the attempt. You should think this is a slam dunk for the fresh tyres on Crisdale. He's got the inside. And it just doesn't quite work. Sampson is brave around the outside there like you rarely see. And then that second apex is nowhere for Crisdale and he loses out.
Sampson just very confidently able to pinch down on Crisdale and force him to the inside line and compromise his speed and claim the outside line for himself and not be the one having to yield. And you can see now that he's got in front. He's actually been completely checked out there, so Crisdale not able to keep up at this time. But it's a question of, well, when does Sampson come down the lane? He could potentially run it long here and go for fresh tyres right at the end, but have to wait and see what the play is. I mean,
Delta is
everything-
steady between your race leader and Hins. It's what it was a lap ago and what it was a lap before that. So neither party making gains.
Yeah, not too surprising there.
So close at the lead.
These guys at the halfway phase able to hang on to the car, but yeah, right at the front of the field. Pluck, thankfully, well, for at least for his sakes and Faulkner's sakes, not pushing Faulkner to defend all that much. And there we go. So we're going to have an undercut situation compared to Pluck, at least, from Faulkner. But now this is the real test. Race leader onto the lane. Does Thomas Hins have enough in it to be able to, oh, pardon me, undercut Faulkner, and into the lane comes that 042. Up onto the jacks he goes, and here is that 52 machine of Thomas Hins coming down the Andretti straightaway, David. He's almost at the end of it, though, so this is going to be fairly close, I think, on exit. Faulkner's about halfway down the lane, but what's your pick at this stage now?
Ooh, I think overall Hins, because even if they're neck and neck at turn 2, Hins is just going to have a little bit more confidence and a little bit more tyre pressure. I think he might have it by turn 1.
And look at that there. Yep, round the outside he goes. Faulkner's not even able to clear the limiter line, so quite comfortably done in the end. So there we go. Confirmation that we're looking at our net race leader in the eyes of the, well, in the hands of the 52 machine of Thomas Hins. And look at that. He's up to almost 5 seconds clear as Faulkner continues to build the speed out of the pit lane. So, yeah, that's going to be critical indeed. And on this next lap here, we should see Faulkner drop a little bit more as that front end needs to come up to temperature. And while certainly Hins might be compromised on pace, I just don't expect that to be the case. As we see here, Carl Sampson making his way around lapped car.
No, Garden just gave it up.
Interesting, yeah. Well, Sampson has been lethally quick, or was at least looking to be rapid the last couple of laps. Did 24.9 on lap number 10. But got held up behind Gardner, I think. So, yeah, Gardner has completed his compulsory stop and thinks, well, yeah, what's the point in holding up Sampson? I might as well slot in behind. Let Carl do the work down the straights and maybe learn a thing or two whilst following him around in the corners for good measure. We have a look there at that's the third place car on track, Ryan Green, in the lone Hyundai Veloster here tonight, David. Currently up 2 spots from his starting place, but he's going to have to get that pit stop done soon, and he will fall quite a ways down the grid. In fact, we should be looking at him falling all the way back to 13th at this stage. Oh, pardon me, sorry, no, he won't. That's the delta from Thomas Hins back to a couple of cars. Expect to see him drop into around the outside of the top 10. That's actually where he should end up. So, depends on how long he waits for his pit stop from the front of the field.
Yeah, you just got to look about 24 seconds back from where Hins is right now for where Green would probably end up after his stop. Those top 3 yet to stop. And previous lap, Pluck did get that fastest lap of the race, but then it's dropped a tiny bit. And he's still trading lap times with Hins, and based on where Pluck was with Faulkner, you think Pluck needs to be pulling time out of Hins and isn't quite managing to do it. So that early stop, somehow a bit of a masterstroke.
Yeah, and he's increased the gap from 4.5 to 6 seconds. So Thomas Hins has got that 52 Honda switched on, and it's doing a wonderful job under his control at this stage. And yeah, that car, I think one of the things is with the car taking the fresh tyres early, as much as it shouldn't make a big difference here tonight, David, it will mean that it means the front and rears are relatively in sync, as you haven't heated the rears up heaps within just 3 laps. Whereas, yeah, when the guys come out of the pits now, that opening lap is going to be a little bit treacherous for some of them, perhaps, because they'll have warm rears, but yeah, cold fronts, and that's going to be a combination that they'll have to get used to for a couple of corners. Pluck just passing by some lap traffic in the hand of Johnny Rowe. Meanwhile, P2 in the hands of Lasbom coming down, and that looks like a pit entry from our race leader. Yes, it is. So onto the lane comes Matthew Pluck, but we should expect him now to cede the, well, Lasbom's going to stay out one more lap, and take the race lead for the time being. But yeah, it is now a matter of when for Thomas Hinz as Pluck's down into his box now and getting that service underway here, David.
Yeah, still looking at 24-ish seconds of service, which is not there yet, and not there yet, and not there yet. And, you know, it's a really short pit straight. So once Hinz is out that final corner, there's really not far to go. This is going to look a lot better for Pluck, though.
Yeah, I think so. He's not.
He
He's
might have
further
a
down
little
the
bit more
pit lane.
to go, though, yeah.
Okay, it's a bit deceptive then. Yeah, we can see there in the second shot as Hinz wraps around. Definitely closer than Ben Faulkner was out of the lane. In fact, the answer there lies in the fact that Faulkner was 26 seconds stationary versus 23 for Pluck. So he's able to slot into that gap. And only 2.3 behind Hinz and 4.5 seconds clear of Faulkner. So top two on track have been divided quite substantially now that the cycle of pit stops continues here. Question is now, does Matthew Pluck have anything left for Thomas Hinz in this back half of the race once he gets his car up and running? Gap is increasing, though. It's already climbed half a second here in that opening sector. So very much, again, the case of that cold tyres hurting the front end performance. Race leader and Vlasblom has stayed out, David, but we wait to see here. Does Ryan Green bring his car down onto the lane? That doesn't look like it's a pit entry. Nope, he stays out for one more lap as well, at least.
So Vlasblom, Green, and Carl Sampson, who haven't stopped yet.
Indeed.
Well, he
Charging
does have the
recovery
fastest
drive.
lap of the race.
Yep, Samson's been putting in some absolutely blind. He's the only driver in the 124s on registered personal bests. So Sampson is definitely pushing hard here to try and improve his situation, but a pit stop for him will put him back in 13th place on my estimates. So it's going to be a rough night for him, unfortunately, at this stage. Going to need a safety car here in the next couple of laps to change that up for him, because he's got a lot of gap. He's got 3 seconds up the road. If a safety car is called and maybe the guys ahead roll out of it, whilst the guys behind, maybe they back off too. It's maybe Sampson's chance to minimise his loss, but yeah, it looks good now, but unfortunately that should change in the next couple of laps. He has to come into the lane before the end of lap number 19. So he has to make sure he doesn't stay out too long, as the last driver, well, one of the drivers up the front of the field, Vlasblom, brings it in. Ryan Green, though, is staying out for one lap further. So really going long here in the opening stint is the 818 Alpha Venturi machine, but just ticking down the opportunities. So he's going to have 4 more times he can come past the pit lane and choose the pit then to get his compulsory stop done within the window tonight.
Wondering
Carl
where
Sampson.
we're next going to see a battle.
Yeah, it would be nice. Unfortunately, it would seem that while there are plenty of drivers sitting around 1.5, well, a couple of drivers 1.5 seconds apart. Currently looking at, no, sorry, that's, yeah, Robert Crisdale 1.6 behind Reece Gardner is currently the closest battle on track for 7th place. Currently looking at lap time numbers, though, Gardner a couple of tenths quicker than Crisdale last lap around. So it's the closest gap on track, but I get the feeling it's going to stretch out and join the 2-second group here in the next couple of laps, if past performance is an indicator of the future. And indeed there, look at the gap, jump up to 2 seconds.
Superannuation adds that that's not the case.
Yes, they would like.
He's going to end up pretty close to that Vlasblom Edwards thing that's going on. So on the outlap here, Vlasblom just struggling a tiny bit, as you do. And Edwards is with him now, has closed that down under a second.
So here is the battle pack that we can show you on screen, folks. Vlasbom, as you said, yeah, getting that car back up to speed. Late pit stop in this race does mean he'll have the speed here in the next couple of laps, but a little bit unbalanced here on the outlap, at least in terms of the temperature difference, as Carl Sampson brings his car down onto the lane. So we watch him come down the order now, and yeah, expect to see him in around 12th, 13th place, I would suspect. Once that all ends up, the race leader is still out on track and heading up to Moss. So the question remains, how long does he wait? He's on lap 17. He's got 3 more times where he can come down the lane and be within the pit window. So needs to make sure that procedure is followed. So you see here, Vlasbom is still struggling with the car. Up the inside goes Edwards at turn 3. David, not quite able to make it work. He's pinched down to the apex by the 57 Audi. So that battle will have to continue for a couple more laps yet, although they stay as they are on track for the time being. Ryan Green finally brings his car down into the pit lane from the race lead, though.
And I do think he'll be pretty close to those two who are just watching. And Edwards, optimistic, looking for the inside there, then rode just a bit too much of the curb, and you can't get good traction with half of your drive wheels up on the curb like that. Everyone else goes through. Hin's back to being scored. Being scored as the race leader for the first time in this race. Now, Pluck and Faulkner presently making up the podium positions.
Yeah,
well, Green's still got a couple more seconds to go.
Yeah, indeed. He's waiting. He's got the car primed on the revs, just under 25 seconds stationary. And he gets his car underway once again. So he's going to come out here. Yeah, just ahead of Vlasbom by about 4 or 5 seconds by the looks of things. Actually make it 3 seconds to be precise. So, going to have to take his time. He can afford to take his time, that is, and work his car into it. But look at that in the past lap there. Vlasbom has ditched Isaac Edwards, and now he's starting to really open that gap up, it would seem, although slightly worse run through turn 3 for the 57. Keeps that number 15 car within a second when it was up to 1.2 for a moment there.
Harnell on the lane for the second time there, so I'm not 100% sure what's going on with him. 3 laps to go. This is key laps here from Vlasbom, though.
Yeah.
Probably going to be able to get up to Green, and Green has been struggling with the turn-in with the front-end grip on those cold tyres through the fast corners. Not so much trouble there at Moss, but it was turn 2 where he was having a bit of a mare, and here, at the end of the straight, gain another really, really fast sector where you need the front to bite.
Yeah, the front-end grip is going to be crucial as always. Gaps down to 2 seconds from 2.3, so yeah, just chipping away here in this opening stint of, well, this end stint for Green with that tyre change. 3 laps to go, though, on the board for these drivers, so Vlasbom doesn't have a lot of time to do it, but he's got that gap under 2 seconds, and it's down towards 1.7, so again, yeah, high-speed rotation is definitely not there for Green, but Vlasblom's just gone in way too hot to turn 2 there, David, and that's just blown a huge amount of time as a result, I would have thought, but
I
no,
think
actually.
he recovered from it pretty good, but it was obviously a little too much speed on the way in, and therefore he turned that into a late apex, but not what you typically aim for. This is still struggle streak for Green, and Vlasblom is going to get into the slipstream.
Yeah, I thought he completely blew it, but he recovered. Picked up 2 tenths on the exit of turn 3, and then picked up another 3 tenths here on the run through Moss. Unfortunately, just ticking up and down a little bit here and there on the fringes of the toe, it would seem, but now just closing in here at the top end of the straightaway. So, yeah, that Hyundai on fresh tyres, it is not responding quite the way Green wants, and he's really having to lean. Oh, I believe that's pun number 3 for the Binjay. Yeah, three dings, and send him to the Shadow Realm, folks. Send your complaints to the SimSpeed. Send your complaints to the SimSpeed Facebook page, Oh, Vlasbom is still absolutely flinging his car around this track. He's cut the gap down to 1.3. It's still there. So despite all of the aggressive driving, oh my goodness, Green is horrendously understeering through all of the faster turns. As you said, David, that Hyundai is not set up for fresh tyres or an imbalance in the tyre temperatures here. It's still not calibrated. We've got a lap and a half to go for these two.
We've got to move that brake bias back a little bit. Hinz is potentially going to put Reese Harnell a lap down on the final lap of the race, which means there'll be one more time on this Andretti straight for this pair that we're watching, and you just desperately need to get within that 1 second if you're Vlasblom.
And there it is, creeps inside a second on the Andretti straightaway. Is the front end of that Hyundai finally hooked up? I don't think so as we come through the S's, and again, look at the gap. Vlasblom holding that inside line on the curb beautifully. Green not able to match, and he's just leaving a car like a tyres width to the apex everywhere. So they take the white flag now, and the gap is a 3/4 of a second, David. There, he's right in it. It's going to be a matter of just, again, hitting the marks of Vlasblom, pushing to the limits of the track and not much further, because can't afford to throw any of his progress away here. And there we go! Speaking of throwing it away, Ryan Green overdrives the car at turn 2, wanders off into the grass, and he's going to get passed by Isaac Edwards as well. So outside the top 10, the 818 after starting in P5 with the reverse grid. It's just gone backwards, it would seem, unfortunately, for him tonight. But front of the field, pitted early, clean air for the majority of the race, and put it to perfect use. Thomas Hinz comes across the line to take the checkered flag, wins the second race of the night ahead of Matthew Pluck there. A good drive from him, and Ben Faulkner to round out the podium tonight ahead of Dylan Jordan in 4th, and Rhys Gardner there going to round out our top 5 here tonight, David. So there you go, the drivers coming from the back of the pack, able to make it work. Final lap fight, Ryan Green is half a second back from Isaac Edwards. Has he got anything in that car now to maybe stage a desperate redemption drive? But again, that car is not turning, and he's going to have to settle for P11 here.
The pressure just got to him. He thought he needed more speed than he did into turn number 2. Did that mistake that a handful have made and pushed it out wide in turn number 2, and it's cost him. But that was always the gambit, going long as you knew you were going to be under fire later on.
Absolutely, indeed. Well, now we can run you through our race results for the second of the races here in 2 Litre Tours. Thomas Hinz gets the win tonight, 5 seconds clear of Matthew Pluck in that 51 Kiwi sim racing entry. Ben Faulkner rounding out the podium tonight. So it's 3 different teams, 2 different cars there for the second of these races here. Dylan Jordan in 4th ahead of Rhys Gardner for 5th, and then Robert Chrisdale, first of our Audis on the track tonight, brings it home in 6th. Hayden Kirk, the next of our Hondas, in 7th ahead of Mark Noble in 8th. Zachary Vlasbom there, able to win the mind games to get 9th place, and Isaac Edwards getting up into 10th there ahead of Ryan Green in 11th. Carl Sampson, recovery drive for him after that lap 1 spin. 12th is his result ahead of Johnny Rowe in 13th. Shane Best in 14th, and Rhys Harnell just hangs on to the lead lap in 15th place there, David. And then unfortunately, our retirements this evening, Matthew Brunt, 2 laps short of that race there. And then the rest of our drivers, well, 3 safety car drivers not taking the start, but neither. We missed out on Robert Northway and Alex John there tonight. So a slightly shortened field for this second race this evening. Well, got a chance to chat with our race 2 winner here, David. So let's bring in Thomas Hinz to the interview booth. Thomas, congratulations there, mate, on a really solid night for you there. Qualified on pole for the first race, podium in that first race, and then converted with a very good feature race there to take the win tonight.
It was interesting that second race because obviously I just pitted a little bit earlier because I sort of was in the pack and I was like, I'd like to try and clear it. And then yeah, just came out, and then everyone was miles behind. That's why I asked during the race to Henry. I was just confirmed. I was like, it is 2 tyres, right? Like I thought for a sec it was 4 tyres because it just everyone disappeared. But I'm assuming there must have been a massive crash somewhere. But yeah, so I was like, oh, okay, and yeah, then bet Benjamin that out, and yeah, it ended up being a surprise. I wasn't expecting that, so yeah, I'll take that. And yeah, the first race was awesome fun, battling Carl and then Reese. That was really good. Unfortunately, the Civic, as per, just doesn't have the top end of the Hyundai, so was just sort of trying to hang on and hope I get Carl back, but he was just too quick, and then yeah, Reese just had me at the end. But awesome fight. So yeah, in the end for me, a bit of luck, I guess, in that second one as well. So yeah, no, good stuff.
Absolutely, you had to go down to the wire there in the first race. Looking back at that one there, speaking of the fight with Carl and Reese, you gave us a show there to the line, almost able to get it back off Reese at the final corner. Not quite in the end, unfortunately. But yeah, in that second race, as it turns out, just able to put in really good laps and clear everyone as they weren't sort of just pitting later than you. So able to make the undercut work to a T there. And yeah, all the props to you and your strategy tonight it would be. Well, before we let you go, Thomas, a chance to thank team partners, friends, sponsors and the like. Who gets it done for you tonight?
Well, just the usual Henry James guys, Jinx Shifters, and all the sponsors on the car. Big thanks to them for the support, getting the car looking very pretty. Yeah, and just big thanks to Jetta, HR, and all those guys. Yeah, first of 5 series this weekend, and I don't have it off like I've had the last couple of times I've done this. I was just saying to Joe before, so yay. So I'm going to be dead on Monday. That's fine. Part of the crazy stuff I do when I try to run myself to the ground, I suppose. But yeah, no, big thanks to Henry James and everyone in the car, and Henry for putting on the series. He always does such a, as I said before, he loves supports and it shows and how well it's run. So big thanks to him for all the work he does with that. And yeah, big thanks to you guys for putting on a great show as always.
Appreciate that, Thomas. Thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you in the next round when the 2-litre tours return in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you very much, guys.
So there's Thomas Hinz, race 2 winner tonight, and we've got one more person actually in the interview booth, which I think might be worth grabbing here, David. And I'll hand over to you. Have a chat to Reese Gardner after his podium in the first race of 2-litre tours tonight.
Well, Reese, ups and downs. How did you find that across both races? Split up by also your work in the Jettas.
Yeah, it was a pretty fun night, guys. Certainly, I'm super happy with the way I finished in the first race, P2. You know, obviously I didn't have the best of starts, and I still need to work on my standing starts in these cars. But working my way up to second in race 1, I was happy with. Also happy with the good position I got in race 1 in the Jettas, but unfortunately it all came undone in race 2. I think just a lot of drivers at the same time going into Moss, and of course Daniel Stevens going off the track in front of me. I don't blame him for what happened. That's all good. And yeah, race 2 in the TCRs, I straight up stalled the car on the grid, but I'm still happy to get a top 5 at the end of it.
Yeah, a couple drivers doing that, and then also a jump start tonight from another driver as well. What's going on there? What's the key challenge that sees drivers struggling with stalling out these TCRs?
Well, you can set the start revs. Let me just take a look at the setup menu here. Yeah, the launch RPM. I've got mine set to 4,000, which I think is a bit low, to be honest with you. So, you know, the way you usually do a standing start in these cars is you hold the handbrake, hold in the clutch, and then full throttle. It'll hold it at the right amount of revs, and then you just lift out on the clutch pedal until the revs start dropping, and then you release the handbrake and you go. Unfortunately, the revs were a bit too low for me, so I suspect that was the case for those guys too.
A lack of jandle that I'm sure you'll rectify in future rounds.
Yes, I hope so. I'll definitely set my launch RPM at least 1,000 RPM higher. We'll see what happens.
Absolutely, we love it. All front-wheel drived out for tonight?
Yep, I think I am. I'm also front-wheel drived out from last night. I was streaming some TCR racing last night too, so I think I'll take a little bit of a break from the old touring cars for a little while at least.
Reese, we'll see plenty of you and hear plenty of you, I'm sure, going forward on SimSpeed. Who you want to thank?
I'd like to thank all the people at Fusion Sim Racing, iRap Designs for the livery, Scott Stevens for sitting in with me and spotting during the first Jetta race, and for giving me some good company on my Twitch stream as well. Big shout out to my Twitch chat too for all of their support.
Hi, chat. Thanks, Reese.
Thanks very much, guys.
Well, that will do us for tonight, David, I do believe. And, well, time to start looking forward to the next round of the SCOPS Sports Calendar, which is in 3 weeks' time. Well, it will be the next SCOPS event as well. But once again, the Jetta Cup will return as part of this opening phase of the calendar as secondary support, because our main support card will be the Legacy V8s. So, 2014... VF, Commodore, and FG Falcon will be on track and in full display. So look forward to seeing that. And note that we will, of course, be changing time zones well before that round. So 7:45 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time instead of daylight time as we're on for this week, David. So book it in Friday, April 22nd. And that's when we'll see the next round of SCOPS and the supports calendar make its way there. But, of course, this is the opening salute to the main game on Sunday, so make sure to tune in for the Canadian Tire Super Sprint. 2 races, 110 kilometres per race coming up on Sunday. We'll have more information for you there as part of the introduction to that show tonight. David, well, before we sign off, any final words from you on what we've seen tonight here with the Tourers and the Jetta Cup?
If it's a SCOPS round, be careful at turn 2.
Pretty apt description, I think. Yes, turn 2 is not a place to be making a move most of the time, but, well, never say never, because someone might try something just to get the upper hand, perhaps, you would have to say. Well, big thank you, everyone, for watching along with us tonight here at SimSpeed TV. Big thanks to Oceanic Sim Racing for continuing to provide the V8SCOPS series and the supports here in particular, and to Logitech G, the partner who makes this series possible for 2022. My name is Daniel Yeaman. David Haynes been alongside me in the commentary box, and Jay Kennedy on production for the broadcast tonight. Until next time, whether it's the support series in a couple of weeks, SCOPS on Sunday, or any of the other productions we've got here on SimSpeed, thank you all for watching. Take care until then, and it's bye for now.